A young man smirks confidently in the shadows, confirming that he has a goal. On a busy city street, chaos erupts as a bystander screams for an ambulance, explaining that a man was run over after protecting a woman. A police officer questions the shaken woman, asking if she is all right and if she knew the man who saved her, while the man himself lies injured and bandaged nearby. From the perspective of the dying man on the asphalt, the woman he saved denies knowing him as she walks away with the officer, while he thinks that her safety is all that matters. As his vision blurs, the man realizes with a final thought how stupid he was. He flashes back through his life, remembering how he always acted as a good person, only to conclude that this is what he gets for it. His last moments are filled with the bitter realization that he lived a truly awful life. Suddenly, he jolts awake with a gasp, finding himself a small child with dark, messy hair sitting up in an unfamiliar, luxurious bed. Looking around the ornate room, he understands that he is recalling memories from his previous life. He pieces it together. He died protecting his girlfriend who was cheating on him and was subsequently reincarnated into a world of swords and magic as Augur Verret, the eldest son of a villainous ducal family. Now a young boy being served an array of desserts, he contemplates his new identity as a villain, thinking back on the experiences of his past life. He recalls the harsh lesson he learned firsthand, that being a good person is complete and utter garbage. Now a young man, his polished shoe stomps down with purpose as he resolves never to suffer that fate again, now that he's been reborn into a villainous noble family. Identified as the 15-year-old Augur Verret, he declares his new life's purpose, to live as he pleases according to his own desires, forcing slaves to work and cute girls to serve him as an absolute villain. Augur approaches his father, apologizing for the wait, and is warmly welcomed and invited to take a seat at the table. The head of the Verret family, Gordon Verret, praises his son for being a responsible successor, diligently training and studying without missing a day. Augur accepts the praise as only natural, internally admiring his father's true nature as a cunning feudal lord who acts the fool and mismanages his lands on purpose to plot against his political enemies. He tells his father he intends to learn all he can from him, while privately celebrating this excellent villainous behavior as the exact model he wishes to emulate. Gordon declares that he has high hopes for Augur, but to become his successor, he must first enroll in the Lichberg Magic Academy. When his father asks what he plans to do about his unique magic, Augur assures him that he will not reveal his one-of-a-kind technique to the public. Gordon laughs, pleased by the answer, and adds one final task. Augur must choose his own attendant to serve him in the dorms, which piques Augur's interest. Augur questions if he is truly allowed to choose for himself, and his father confirms it, stating that identifying good human resources is part of his training and even suggests buying a slave if he prefers. This news fills Augur with excitement, as he realizes this is the moment he's been waiting for, an opportunity to find a subordinate who can help him become a perfect villain. A wicked idea forms in his mind. Merely finding a talented person would be dull, so he decides to intentionally find someone with a powerful sense of justice and force them into performing evil deeds. The thought of this plan, of corrupting righteousness, thrills him as he recognizes it as the truest form of evil. Augur informs his father that he already has a candidate in mind and takes his leave, with his father cautioning him to be careful. He arrives at an underground arena on the outskirts of the royal capital, ready to recruit his first accomplice from the brutal fighting pit. Inside, a calm, blonde-haired woman stands ready with a sword as two men charge at her, shouting insults and threats before a roaring crowd. She stares back with a bored expression as one of her opponents vows that this time, he will certainly cut her down. An armored gladiator screams that her winning streak ends now as he swings a spiked mace at her head. A blur of motion fills the panel as an attack called Sword Swing Madness is unleashed. The armored man screams as his arm is severed, but the woman coldly tells him to be quiet. She raises her great sword to deliver the final blow, telling her opponent he should keep silent in his last moments. An off-screen voice calls out the name, Chris, and a man watches as she turns from her fallen opponent, whose screams are cut short. The man informs Chris that she has a visitor, and she turns toward the exit, wondering who it could be. Her handler leads her to a private room where Augur sits waiting, and after a brief apology for the delay, Augur commends the man on a job well done. Chris scoffs at the sight of a kid, earning a sharp rebuke from the handler, but Augur dismisses it and requests to speak with her alone. The handler eagerly agrees to secure the room, while Chris looks on suspiciously as he shuts the door, leaving her alone with Augur. Augur thinks to himself that the handler has misunderstood the situation, as he has not come to purchase a woman. He then addresses her directly by her full name and former title, Commander of the Holy Knights, Chris Ragnica. Chris is stunned into silence, recognizing the Verret family crest on the short sword at his hip and realizing who he is. The shocking truth hits her all at once. The boy before her is a noble. Augur calmly tells her there is no need to stare, though he supposes her reaction is understandable as she curses, knowing the Verret family's role in intelligence gathering. He then drops a bombshell, confessing that it was nobles like him who framed her and had her driven from the Holy Knights. Chris grits her teeth in anguish as she remembers that time, realizing that what he says is true. A flashback shows her past self, tracking a major human trafficking source for the sake of justice and discovering that a noble was in charge. She is then seen reporting directly to the king, declaring that the source of the trafficking was the nobility and demanding they face immediate judgment. However, another noble steps in to intervene, advising His Majesty not to trust her words, much to her shock. The noble discredits her as a mere commoner and presents fabricated proof of a false report, while she desperately insists she is telling the truth. Back in the present, Chris recounts her story to Augur, explaining how the nobles framed her as the criminal, covered up her evidence, and stripped her of her position as a holy knight. Overcome with rage, she slams her fist into a nearby post. She grabs Augur by his uniform, screaming about how their actions forced her to wield her sword for justice in this vile arena, and demands to know what a rotten noble could possibly want from her. Augur remains impassive as she holds him, letting out only a soft, quiet sigh. He looks down at her and expresses his disappointment, asking what happened to her pride as a holy knight. His question catches her completely off guard, leaving her stunned and speechless. She stammers that she is no longer a holy knight. Augur tells her that he liked and admired the person she used to be. Leaning close, he reminds her of how she once stood undeterred by evil and encouraged her friends. He continues that she was filled with a sense of justice stronger than anyone else's, causing her to plead with him to stop. Chris turns away, declaring that she is not the same person anymore and that she is now scum who had to use vile methods to survive. She insists that the holy knight named Chris Ragnica died long ago. Augur agrees with her assessment, proposing that if she has already died, then she can simply start over from the beginning. He offers her his hand, inviting her to join him with the promise that he will make her shine brightly again. Chris looks up at him, her face blushing as his words stir something within her. He vows to create a place where her justice can shine once more and asks for her decision. With tears streaming down her face, Chris kneels before him and pledges to wield her sword for his sake, addressing him as Augur-sama. Internally, Augur lets out a triumphant cry, having successfully deceived her. He privately scoffs at the fool who shed tears for his act, reflecting on his 3 clauses of evil: live by your beliefs, polish your charm, and decide your own future. Gloating over how perfectly he manipulated her into becoming his eternal slave, he tells her it's time to go meet his father, and she obediently agrees. As they walk, Augur explains that since she is a public criminal, she will need a new name, suggesting Alice, based on his father's naming conventions. Chris is deeply moved, tearfully asking if he would truly grant her such a precious name, while Augur privately wonders what was so touching about his pragmatic suggestion. She then asks Augur-sama for permission to visit the arena one last time, and though he agrees, he asks her purpose. She smiles and explains that she has something she needs to prepare before they leave. Augur assumes she wants to retrieve her weapons and permits her to take any good ones she finds. He revels in his plan, thinking how the sword she wields for what she believes is justice will actually serve his villainous goals. Calling out to his new sword, Alice, he invites her to take the first step toward achieving his villainous ambitions together. He is met with a scene of absolute carnage, as Alice stands atop a mountain of corpses, announcing her preparations are complete, leaving Augur utterly horrified by her methods. Alice explains that she needed to cut down all the villains in the arena so that people would know of her justice, while Augur reflects that he has gained a powerful pawn, but this was a shocking start. As a blood-splattered and joyfully smiling Alice pledges to serve as his sword for eternity, a terrified Augur realizes that the path to villainy is brutally steep, even from the very first step. An imposing building is introduced as the Royal Magic Academy, Lichberg, the finest magic institution in the country, exclusively for students of noble birth. Dressed in the academy uniform, Augur Verret stands confidently, thinking that this is the perfect place to establish a foundation for his ambitions. Alice compliments how well the uniform suits him and pledges her full devotion as his attendant, while Augur reflects on securing his powerful pawn and beginning his new life at the academy. As they walk, other students begin to whisper, recognizing Augur from the infamous Verret family, which Alice takes as a sign of his immediate popularity, though Augur senses a problem. The whispers turn venomous as students mock him for being the son of a villain lord and a loser who likely used family connections to get in, causing Alice's face to darken with rage. Alice draws her sword, preparing to kill the students for their insults, but Augur calmly orders her to stop, noting to himself that his new maid is dangerously volatile. He internally acknowledges the troublesome situation, having fully expected to be badmouthed due to his family's notorious reputation for villainy. With Alice now secured as his subordinate, he thinks about his next objective, creating a harem of beautiful women. This goal, however, seems difficult given his current poor reputation, but his thoughts are interrupted when a voice calls out his name. A student with long, red hair approaches, greeting him familiarly before guessing he doesn't remember her, leaving Augur momentarily confused as to their gender. His gaze falls upon a distinctive hair clip in her hair, which instantly triggers a memory. He recalls his ex-fiancée, Karen Levitsenka, the sole daughter of another of the 4 great ducal families, picturing a time when they were children together. Augur greets Karen, who is shocked that he remembers her from when they were 5 years old, and he points out the hair clip he gave her, which she admits to still treasuring, before introducing her to Alice as his ex-fiancée. Alice questions the ex part of the introduction, prompting Augur to explain that the engagement was broken because of a problem on his end, an idea Alice immediately refutes, declaring him to be a perfect man. Augur turns to Alice and asks if she understands that in this world, magic is the most important thing of all. He then bluntly reveals his problem. He possesses absolutely no aptitude for magic and is incapable of using it. He explains that being a noble without magic is a fatal flaw, which is why the engagement was broken, even if it meant earning the hatred of the Levitsenka family, leaving Alice speechless. Karen watches him with a blushing, pained expression, thinking to herself about how Augur has always been. Augur dismisses the encounter, assuming Karen has her own reasons for cross-dressing, and urges Alice along so they aren't late for the entrance ceremony. Inside a vast hall, a speaker on a podium formally congratulates the new students and begins giving them instructions for settling in. During the ceremony, Augur overhears more gossip from his peers, who identify him as the rumored Augur Verret, the noble with no magic talent. Alice becomes extremely vexed, fuming that the others know nothing about what a wonderful person he truly is, and Augur once again has to restrain her from attacking someone. As Alice struggles with a mountain of luggage, Augur tells her to listen, calmly stating that she is right. They simply don't know him, and that is precisely why he is letting them say whatever they want for now. He smiles with calculating confidence, vowing that the day will soon come when they all look at him with envy, a promise that a teary-eyed Alice enthusiastically accepts. With that settled, Augur declares it is time for them to go forth and find new members for his harem. Karen remarks on the grand scale of the academy as Augur glances past her towards 2 other female students, having already decided on his next target. He considers that finding the specific girl he wants will be difficult in such a large place, just as he overhears 2 male students laughing about how they scared a girl witless. His attention is drawn to the source of the commotion, where the same 2 vulgar students are bullying a timid girl who is pleading with them to stop. The bullies berate the girl for being a commoner, demanding she stop looking at them with her disgusting gaze before one raises his hand to strike her. Suddenly, Augur steps between them, blocking the attack and surprising Alice with his intervention. He apologizes to a confused Alice, pushing her out of the way as he declares that the girl being bullied is his target. With a flourish, Augur flips over the bullies and lands a swift kick, thinking that this is the perfect opportunity to show his cool side to his intended conquest. The bully sputters with rage, demanding if Augur knows who he is, but Augur calmly identifies him as Luark Baumholt, second son of a count, and notes his misplaced pride in his status. With a condescending smile, Augur introduces himself as a member of the Verret ducal family, declares Luark to be beneath him, and orders him to scram. The bullies flee while shouting threats, and Alice marvels at Augur's impressive physical prowess, which he casually dismisses as nothing. He then turns to the girl he rescued, gently asking if she can stand while thinking about the real, primary reason he wants her as his subordinate. As the girl stammers out her thanks, Augur's internal thoughts reveal his true motivation, her wonderfully plump breasts. The girl introduces herself as a first-year student named Mishiro Leash, and Augur is momentarily overwhelmed by the destructive power of her chest straining against her uniform, forcing himself to calm down and act like a gentleman. He smoothly offers her his handkerchief, pointing out that her skirt got dirty when she fell. Leash is moved to tears by his kindness, asking if it is really okay for someone like her to accept such a gift from him. She promises to wash and return it before running off to see him at the welcome party, while he smiles and tells her not to worry about it. Once she is gone, Augur breaks into a triumphant, villainous laugh, certain that his plan has worked perfectly and her affection for him is already skyrocketing. He tells Alice they should head to the party, thinking that since Leash is the Academy's only commoner, he just needs to continue being the sole noble who is kind to her, and she will inevitably fall into his hands. Alice, completely oblivious to his scheme, sobs with admiration for what a truly noble person Augur-sama is, while he simply decides to leave her to her crying. Later, at the splendid new student welcome party, Augur surveys the grand hall as Alice brings him a drink. From a balcony overlooking the main floor, he and Alice observe the partygoers when his attention is drawn to a crowd gathered below. Alice identifies the young man at the center of the crowd as Arnia Rondism, the crown prince and the next king. Augur adds another crucial detail for a shocked Alice. The prince is also Karen's current fiancé. Alice is outraged that Karen's engagement to Augur was broken off for the prince, but Augur pragmatically states it was unavoidable due to his lack of magic, just as the prince seems to notice them from across the room. The crown prince approaches them directly and asks if they have some business with him, causing Augur to wonder if his killing intent was somehow detected. Before Alice can react, Augur steps forward protectively, apologizing to the crown prince and stating that she is with him. The prince looks at Augur with open mockery, acknowledging that he has heard a lot about the unqualified student with no magic aptitude. As Alice bristles with anger, Augur firmly tells her to stand back. He then gives a slight bow, formally introducing himself to the prince and stating he is honored to be known by him, to which the prince coolly replies that of course he is, given his popularity. Karen rushes over to the prince, looking flustered, and he turns to ask her what is wrong. Karen is frozen with panic, unable to speak. Alice finally understands that Karen's reserved behavior from earlier was because the prince is her current fiancé. Karen quickly tells the prince that nothing is wrong. Augur announces that he will be going, and as he turns to leave, the prince smirks, saying he can't wait to see what kind of embarrassing acts Augur will perform. The prince coldly calls for Karen to follow him, and she hesitates for a moment, looking back toward Augur. Augur watches her leave, thinking that she must be frustrated, forced by her social standing to simply apologize for her fiancé's insulting behavior. He believes he knows exactly what she is truly feeling in that moment. Karen runs away down the hall, and Alice looks on, deeply moved by what she perceives as Augur's profound empathy. She tells him what an amazing person he is, asserting that even if others look down on him for having no magic, it doesn't matter, because he is still himself. Her heartfelt words bring a genuine smile to Augur's face, and he replies that her sentiment makes him happy, finding the whole situation interesting. Just then, a student delivers a letter addressed to him, and Augur reflects on the major misunderstanding everyone seems to have about his character. He opens the letter and finds it's from Mishiro Leash, thanking him for his help and asking him to meet her in the backyard before class tomorrow morning. There can be no doubt in his mind, it's a love letter. In the Academy's backyard, Mishiro Leash nervously thanks Veritsama for coming and for saving her the day before. Leash closes her eyes and leans forward expectantly. Augur jolts awake in his bed, shouting that it's still too early for that. Alice bursts into his room from her adjacent one with her sword drawn, asking if he's under enemy attack, but a groggy Augur clarifies that it was just a dream. He sits up with a wicked grin, thinking about the love letter from Mishiro Leash and how his dream might become reality very soon. As Alice fawns over how wonderful he looks, Augur preens, thinking he must be a sinful man to have made a girl fall in love with him on the first day of school. Later, Augur arrives at a gazebo in the garden and greets Leash, thanking her for waiting. Leash looks up, flustered, and thanks him again for saving her yesterday. She begins to stammer the exact same words from Augur's dream, causing him to brace himself for her confession of feelings. In a shocking twist, she instead begs him to stop getting involved with her from now on. A confused Augur questions her sudden change of heart, reminding her she seemed so happy yesterday, but she insists his involvement troubles her and shoves his handkerchief back at him. She yells that her apparent happiness was just his misunderstanding. Leash then turns and runs away, leaving Augur standing in stunned silence. He reels in disbelief, unable to comprehend what is happening since his act of giving her the handkerchief was an undeniably gentlemanly move. As Leash runs into the woods, Augur spots something in the distance that catches his eye. He sees her meeting up with Luark and his friends, the very bullies he'd confronted the day before. The horrifying realization dawns on him. The boys he drove off were actually her friends, and his heroic intervention had the completely opposite effect of what he intended. A mental image of Luark appears, taunting Augur for being a misunderstanding bastard, and claiming Leash prefers a bad boy over a gentleman. While a defeated Augur collapses, realizing he misunderstood everything, Alice comments on Leash being a radical girl, prompting Augur to lament that women are hopeless. Later, at the Lichberg Magic Academy cafeteria, a blushing Leash offers a timid apology. Augur and Alice are seen walking through the outdoor patio of the cafeteria. While sipping a drink, Augur reflects that he did not expect things to turn out this way and wonders how he can possibly redeem himself. As Alice serves him pastries, she remarks that it was surprising to hear Lady Leash say such a thing. She presses the issue, asking Augur if he didn't find Leash's words to be odd. Alice logically points out that if Luark and his group were truly Leash's friends, it would be strange for her to be grateful to Augur for driving them away, concluding there must be another reason for her actions, a point Augur concedes. Augur decides that now is not the time to act and that he will wait and see how things develop, a response which confuses and shocks Alice. She interprets his passive approach as a test of her abilities and vows to find a clue and present it to him to prove her prowess. Alice begins her mission, closely observing Lady Leash's movements, while a small, tired Augur sips his drink in the background. Alice follows Leash to the old school building, where Luark's group can be heard laughing about the funny look on Augur's face. Inside, Luark mocks Augur for falling for a simple trick, calling him stupid in addition to being unable to use magic. He turns to Leash, gloating that the misunderstanding bastard acted just as she said he would. Leash protests, saying that they forced her to say those things to Augur. When she tearfully asks why they are doing this, an annoyed Luark asks if she's going to start crying again. Luark's face twists into a malicious grin as he states that he wants to see that Augur Verret weeping next. He orders a terrified Leash to call Augur to their location once again. His cronies boast that even if Augur is strong in a physical fight, they'll beat him with magic, but Leash refuses to do such a thing. She shouts that this is not what they promised her. A flashback shows Luark threatening Leash. If she doesn't disgrace the incompetent Augur for humiliating him, they will hurt Augur with magic. Leash remembers her reasoning for following their orders, believing it was necessary to keep Verret Sama safe from being targeted by them. She recalls the constant derision she faces from nobles who see commoners as disposable, but notes that Luark's group did not keep their promise. However, she thinks Verret Sama is different from them. In the present, Leash stands defiant, refusing to betray Augur a second time and declaring that she will protect him. Enraged by her defiance, Luark strikes her across the face. He then grabs the front of her uniform and rips it open. As Leash screams, he tells her that since she won't cooperate, he will embarrass her instead. Before he can do anything further, a powerful force sends him and his cronies flying backward. Augur stands in the doorway, telling a crying Leash that he is here now and will not let anyone lay a finger on her. Luark gets to his feet, demanding to know why Augur is here and how he's still okay after having his heart broken by Leash. With a smirk, Augur asks if they really thought he would take such an obvious facade seriously. The bullies realize in terror that he saw through their plan from the start and was only pretending to be deceived to lower their guard. A flashback reveals the truth. Several minutes ago, with Alice not present, Augur was sighing in frustration, muttering about the misunderstanding bastard. He had lamented that despite acting cool and mighty, the entire situation had been a misunderstanding and wondered if he needed a new approach. At that moment, Alice had burst in with bad news, urging him to look at a camera-like device she was holding. The device played back a recording of Luark's group forcing Leash to lie to Augur. Augur had then realized that Alice's initial theory was correct. Leash was forced to say those words, and her true feelings were her initial ones of gratitude. Alice had declared that Lady Leash was in danger, and they had to go save her. Back in the present, Luark laughs maniacally, proclaiming he is no misunderstanding bastard and that this is the moment he's been waiting for, a chance to get back at Augur for his earlier humiliation. He calls Augur an idiot for confronting them, boasting that they have magic on their side as he begins chanting a fire spell. Leash screams a warning to Verret Sama as Luark's spell manifests with impressive firepower. Luark unleashes his flame arrows spell, his confident smirk turning to shock as he witnesses the result. The flames dissipate harmlessly around Augur, who stands completely unfazed, commenting that this seems to be the limit of Luark's ability. Luark sputters in disbelief, insisting that Augur shouldn't have magic aptitude and must have used some kind of trick. Augur responds with a simple, knowing, heh. He confirms that it is true he cannot use magic because he lacks the aptitude, which leaves him with other options. A furious Luark tries to cast flame arrows once more. As the fireballs form, Augur thinks that all he needs to do is erase the magic, using his delete technique. The flames vanish instantly, leaving Luark stunned and defenseless as Augur calmly declares checkmate. Augur advances on the bully, referring to him as a dropout and promising to make his defeat quick. Luark can only scream in terror as Augur closes in. Augur stops his fist just before impact, deciding that the cowering bully isn't even worth the effort of punching. Leash watches in amazement, wondering how the magic just disappeared as the other bullies are tied up in the background. Augur turns to her, explaining that he used a technique he developed called delete, which can nullify magic under certain conditions, before asking if she is hurt. With tears in her eyes, Leash apologizes for saying mean things, especially since he has now saved her twice. After a moment of silence, Augur agrees that her actions were indeed unforgivable. He leans in close to a blushing Leash and tells her that he is going to punish her. Wiping away her tears, he tells her not to cry anymore and to keep his technique a secret. Her punishment is to come with him and to ignore anyone who calls them dropouts or commoners. Overjoyed, Leash agrees and throws herself into his arms in a tight embrace. Augur internally celebrates the wonderful feeling of her chest pressed against him. He thinks triumphantly that these boobs are now literally in his hands and that he has taken a significant step forward in completing his harem. Augur lets out a boisterous laugh, declaring that their supremacy has just begun, as Alice congratulates Leash on her good fortune. From a high window overlooking the scene, an unseen observer wonders if the people below are new students. The observer smiles, anticipating that things are going to be interesting this year. Augur reflects on the aftermath of the incident. Luark and his friends were expelled and labeled as perverts, a fitting end for people he will never have to see again. With that matter settled, he is able to focus on his daily workout routine, performing weighted handstand push-ups as Alice stands by, ready to add more weight. Alice cheers for him, remarking that she had thought all nobles lacked physical strength, but Augur-sama is a clear exception. He speculates that since most nobles possess magic aptitude, perhaps he, a reincarnated individual, was given a strong body as compensation for his lack of it. Believing this to be true, he resolves to push himself harder and polish this physical power even further. The next day, Mishiro Leash greets him with a cheerful wave, addressing him informally as Augur-kun. Augur internally praises his own genius for forbidding her from using formal language, thereby achieving the childhood friend dynamic he had always fantasized about. After his workout, Augur instructs Alice to guard Mishiro, admitting he is still worried for her safety after the incident. He tells a curious Leash that he was called out by a certain person and is going for a bath first, revealing a toned physique. Leash and Alice swoon as he leaves for the top floor of the faculty building. Augur composes himself before a large, imposing door, takes a breath, and knocks. He enters a fantastical room filled with projections of swimming fish and coral, where a woman seated on a throne notes that he is on time. The woman, the school's principal, thanks Verret-san for coming to see her so early in the morning. Augur politely tells the principal, Floan Milfanti, not to worry, while thinking about her famous reputation as the hero, Lightning Strike Floan. He observes her, noting that even though she is retired, her power seems not to have diminished in the slightest. He can sense no decline in her strength at all. Principal Floan simply offers a warm smile. She then thanks him for his actions, which confuses Augur. The principal clarifies that she wishes to thank him for what he did for Mishiro Leash-san, which catches him by surprise. Augur is momentarily baffled, wondering why the principal would personally thank him for saving a commoner student. The principal reveals that Leash is a rare exception in a world where people are born with only one magic aptitude. She is a dual magic caster with affinities for both wind and ice. She praises Augur, assuming that as the successor to the Verret family, he must have recognized Leash's rare talent and saved her for that reason. Internally, Augur panics, realizing with horror that he had no idea about this crucial piece of information and had only saved her because of her large breasts. The principal chuckles, formally expressing the Academy's gratitude that a rare talent like Leash was not ruined by the incident. As he leaves her office, Augur feels that something is strange. His path of evil is proceeding smoothly, yet he can't shake an odd feeling. He internally despairs, wondering why he, who aims to be a villain, is being thanked for his deeds. After he is gone, Principal Floan's expression hardens as she thinks that she does not like this, because he is supposed to be evil. She gazes at the magical aquarium in her office, musing on the name Augur Verret. She thinks to herself that his actions were uncalled for. The principal reveals her own intentions. She was planning to use Mishiro Leash as a subject for her experiments, but he stole the girl from her. She considers what Augur has gathered to his side. A dual magic caster and a mage she recognizes as a monster who became a holy knight commander on pure sword skill alone. Most concerning of all, however, is the report from Luark Bamold about a magic that can erase magic. She finds the idea of such an ability ridiculous but is wary, wondering what Augur Verret could be plotting. As the hero Lightning Strike Floan, she vows not to let anyone become an obstacle to the dream she has chased for so many years. She calls out for someone named Reyna, who answers in the affirmative. Reyna Milfanti is tasked by the principal to monitor Augur, as they assume Luark has already disclosed his secret delete ability to others. Augur returns to the classroom, annoyed at being called out so early just to be thanked, and is greeted simultaneously by Leash and Alice. He ponders the new information about Mishiro being a multiple magic holder, questioning why the principal values her talents so highly. Leash notices his distracted state and asks him what the matter is. Snapping out of it, Augur grins, grabs a startled Leash by the hand, and pulls her out of her seat. He announces that they are skipping class to try something new, telling a flabbergasted Alice to stand by. He leads Leash to another large building on campus. He identifies the building as the practice tower, telling Mishiro that he is interested in seeing her dual magic in action. Leash agrees with sparkling eyes and immense enthusiasm. She declares that she'll show him her cool side as she attempts to push open the massive doors to the tower. She strains against the heavy doors with all her might while Augur watches impassively, his thoughts focused elsewhere. The door swings back and knocks her over as a voice from inside states that first-year students are forbidden from entering. Augur helps Leash to her feet as he recognizes the person who has just emerged. A girl with an eye patch introduces herself as Reyna Milfanti, the student council president of the academy. Augur immediately recognizes the name of Floan Milfanti's first disciple, a girl so talented she is known as a child who's loved by God. He notes that she gives off a completely different impression than her photo, perhaps due to her lifeless eyes, but is then struck by the fact that her breasts are much larger in person. Reyna giggles, saying it's embarrassing to be stared at so intently, and Augur quickly apologizes for getting mesmerized. She playfully stretches his cheeks with her fingers. She tells him that smiling is best and that he should smile more when he says something. Her odd behavior leaves Augur bewildered, but she cuts him off by asking why they are here when class should be in session. Augur smoothly lies that class was boring, so they came to practice on their own, a story Reyna pretends to believe. She then offers to give them a practical course herself. The unexpected proposal leaves both Augur and Leash completely shocked. Augur is inwardly thrilled, realizing that a private lesson from an expert like her would be an invaluable opportunity to research his delete ability. Reyna notes his eager reaction but clarifies that she will not be doing it for free. In exchange for her practical course, she wants him to join the student council. Leash turns to Augur, asking him what they should do about the offer. A sharp look crosses Augur's face as he instantly understands the situation. He realizes that having consecutive encounters with both the famous Lightning Strike Floan and her top student is no coincidence. This is a trap. He sees through Reyna's kind facade, understanding that she is merely pretending in an attempt to make him her pawn. With firm resolve, he declares that he will not become anyone's subordinate and tells her he must refuse the offer. Reyna smiles coolly, asking him if that is his final answer. Augur and Reyna hold a tense, silent stare down. The moment is broken by a distant, booming cry of Augur-sama. With a start, Augur realizes he completely forgot about Alice, who had been ordered to wait outside. Alice comes crashing into Augur, sobbing about being left behind, while he awkwardly apologizes, claiming he had an impulse to test something as Reyna looks on, amused. A silent standoff occurs between Alice and Reyna, both well-endowed women puffing their chests out competitively. Reyna accepts Augur's refusal for now, telling him she'll always be waiting should he change his mind. After she departs, Augur watches her go, while elsewhere, Reyna lets out a sigh in a washroom. She walks away, annoyed that her usual techniques for manipulating men were not enough to sway him. She realizes her assets had no effect because the women already around him possess something similar. In a moment of frustration, she grabs her own chest. She vows that next time, she will capture Augur Verret for sure. Augur muses on how easily Reyna gave up, but Alice reminds him of his earlier words and asks what impulsive thing he wanted to test. He explains that since the principal revealed Mishiro is a dual magic caster, he wanted to see her magic for himself but was interrupted by the student council president. Alice's eyes light up as she declares she has the perfect solution. She proposes a mission. A friend from her Holy Night days runs an orphanage being harassed by scoundrels, making it a perfect opportunity to test Lady Leash's magic in a real combat situation. A sly grin spreads across Augur's face. Saving an orphanage sounds like an excellent idea. His villainous mind immediately sees the orphans as treasures, a future workforce that he can make indebted to him for a lifetime if he saves them now. He praises Alice's plan and asks Mishiro if she is up for the task, to which she eagerly agrees. With the plan set, Augur declares that they will visit the orphanage on the weekend. The weekend arrives. The journey is rough, with someone in the carriage becoming violently ill. Inside, Alice comforts a motion-sick Leash while Augur asks about their destination, the city of Einevent. Alice explains it was once a peaceful city just outside the royal capital. She adds that it is located right next to Walshua City, the home of the underground arena. Augur speculates that Walshua's terrible public order must have spilled over and negatively impacted the neighboring city, leading to the current trouble at the orphanage. They arrive at a desolate property, wondering why scoundrels would even want this particular piece of land. Their thoughts are interrupted by a sudden scream from the direction of the orphanage building. They see a group of thugs harassing a nun, who is on the ground begging them to stop. Alice instantly recognizes the nun as her friend, while Augur remarks that his turn to act has come sooner than expected. Leash leaps into action, kicking one of the surprised thugs away from the nun. The thug cries out in pain as the others react to the sudden attack. The thugs are shocked that a mere kid is so strong, as Augur lands behind them with a huff. He thinks this will be an easy fight and plans to question the thugs to resolve the situation quickly. Alice steps forward, ordering the thugs to surrender and demanding to know if they recognize the person before them. She throws her arm out with a flourish, grandly announcing the arrival of Augur Verret-sama. She launches into a long, cringeworthy speech, calling him a savior of justice who dispels darkness and brings light. She finishes her dramatic introduction by shouting his name one more time. Augur is utterly mortified by the incredibly embarrassing display. The thugs are just confused by the bizarre introduction, thinking it was some kind of bad joke, while the nun looks on in shock. The nun, however, is deeply moved by the speech, marveling at what a magnificent person Verret-sama must be. Augur remembers that the nun is Alice's friend and concludes that she must be just as abnormal as Alice is. As one of the thugs yells at them to stop playing around, Augur snaps back to the task at hand. He agrees and apologizes for the theatrics as he effortlessly stops an incoming sword strike with 2 fingers. He tells the thug that it is time for him to reflect on his actions. With a swift blow, he knocks the man unconscious. Another thug yells, "Bastard," as Augur calmly instructs Alice to handle the rest. Alice immediately springs into action, and the thugs cry out as she attacks. With practiced efficiency, she quickly subdues and binds the remaining scoundrels. Augur approaches the nun and assures her that everything is okay now. The nun stares in awe, while Leash rests on the ground nearby, exhausted from the carriage ride. That evening, the nun invites them into the orphanage, apologizing for her humble accommodations. She introduces herself as Mio and explains that she had consulted with Alice about the ongoing harassment at the orphanage. Mio tells Augur she is amazed to see a nobleman helping them, just as Alice had described him, a very caring person. A crowd of children suddenly appears, excitedly greeting Alice One-ichun. Augur counts 10 children, immediately classifying them as 10 future workers, and notes with satisfaction that they are already using Alice's new name. He decides that now is the time to clearly establish the hierarchy between himself and his new assets. With a villainous grin, he introduces himself as the eldest son of Duke Verret and declares that the children are now under his protection, making them his property. He delights in their terrified reactions, thinking to himself that this is the proper way for a villain to make an entrance. The children, however, are not terrified, they just think he looks weak. They chatter among themselves that he's just a frail-looking kid like them, forcing a mortified Mio to apologize for their rudeness. Augur is stunned into silence, realizing that nobles are not well received by children. As Mio shoos the kids outside, Augur calms himself, reasoning that he is an adult and won't lose his temper, as he still has work to do. Inside, he interrogates the bound thugs, demanding to know the reason they are targeting the orphanage. Their leader defiantly spits that they would rather die than talk. Alice draws her sword and says, "Then die," which instantly makes the man crack and confess they were ordered by someone named Aliban. After the thug begs to be released, Augur notices Alice staring intently and asks her what's wrong. She leans down to the terrified man and quietly demands that he tell her Aliban's address. With the information extracted, Alice declares that this should be good enough. Mio thanks Alice profusely, happy that they can now attack the thugs' headquarters, and then nervously asks Augur about his reward. She holds out a small pouch of coins, apologizing that it is all she has to offer. Augur looks down at the meager payment and coldly states that he doesn't need it. A panicked Mio offers to give him her savings or sell something if it's not enough, but he sharply cuts her off, repeating that he told her he doesn't need it. His harsh tone leaves her speechless. Mio chastises herself for the foolishness of offering such a small sum to a member of the powerful Duke Verret house. The children, seeing Mio is upset, rush to defend her by playfully attacking the noble with toy swords and a justice kick. Mio desperately tries to pull them off, apologizing over and over to Verret-sama. One of the boys latches onto Augur in a hug. Augur grumbles under his breath, "Now you've gone and done it." He lifts the boy onto his shoulders, asking Mio if she might like nobles now, even just a little, while the other children clamor for a turn. Holding the boy, he asks Mio how many days she thinks she could feed all these children with the single silver coin she tried to give him. He tells her that if she has time to waste money, she should use it to prepare dinner, which elicits laughter from the children. A crying Mio agrees that he is a wonderful person, and Alice smiles, confirming the sentiment. Alice watches the children laugh and play, reflecting on how long it has been since they have been able to have fun without fear. Later, outside the orphanage, Augur asks Alice what she knows about the boss, Aliban. She reveals that Aliban is a remnant from the Walshua City arena. Augur is shocked, as he was under the impression she had killed everyone there, but Alice explains that some members could have been on a day off and escaped the slaughter. She deduces that Aliban's goal is most likely to build a new arena in the neighboring city of Ainivent, which is out of the capital's sight. She blames herself for the situation, admitting that since she never fought Aliban, she has no idea how strong he is. Augur's stomach churns with guilt, realizing that Mio is suffering because of their past actions, and yet she still tried to offer him her savings. He declares that creating such an uncool situation is not the kind of evil he aims for. Vowing to restore his name, he tells Alice that they will crush Aliban tomorrow, and she eagerly agrees. That night, he tells Alice to get some rest to prepare for the next day, hoping that Mashiro, who has been sleeping, recovers in time. Augur rests in his bed at the orphanage. He awakens to find Mio standing over him in the dark. She climbs onto his bed, removes her habit, and asks if he could give her a moment of his love. Augur is completely frozen in shock, unable to comprehend why this is happening. A nervous Mio stands over Augur's bed as he awakens and asks what she is doing. She admits her request is improper but asks him if he could please teach her about love. With a pained expression, she confesses that she does not know what love is. Mio explains that she was abandoned by her parents at a young age and has never received love from anyone, yet as the caretaker of the orphanage, she is supposed to teach the children about it. Crying, she expresses her fear that without a true understanding of love, she cannot properly protect the children and that her superficial affection will only lead to more incidents like the one with the thugs. She clasps her hands and begs Verret-sama to show her compassion and teach her what love truly is. Augur sits up and gently places his hands on her shoulders, telling her to stop and not to wastefully throw away her purity just to distract herself from her insecurities. He thinks to himself that while he understands her reasoning, he cannot fulfill her request. The real reason flashes through his mind as he looks at her flat chest. He only likes big-breasted women. Putting on a smooth facade, he tells her not to worry, explaining that the time has not yet come for the answer she is seeking. He confidently assures her that if she trusts and waits for him, she will definitely find her answer when the time is right, and she tearfully agrees. Augur thinks that she will likely calm down once the immediate problem with the thugs is resolved. The next morning, Augur, Alice, and a recovered Mashiro are ready to set out on their mission. Augur checks on Mashiro, who apologizes for the trouble her motion sickness caused but insists she is feeling fine now. He gathers the girls and tells them it is time to review their plan of attack. Pointing to a map, he reminds them of their two initial goals. to eliminate Aliban's group and to test out Mishiro's abilities. He admits that he originally saw Mishiro only as a harem member and not a fighter, but her status as a dual magic caster changes the situation. He outlines the mission. Mishiro will fight Aliban and his underlings alone to test her magic, while he and Alice will only intervene if things go badly. Mishiro is ecstatic about the plan, eagerly promising to do her very best. Augur smiles, thinking that this is getting interesting, and he is eager to see the dual attribute magic that impressed even Principal Floan. That night, the trio arrives at a large house in the mountains that serves as the thugs' hideout. Augur gives Alice the signal to proceed as planned, and she gives a firm nod of understanding. Alice kicks open the doors of the hideout, revealing a rowdy tavern filled with thugs. She calmly announces that she is an acquaintance of the men they sent to Ainivent and that she is looking for their leader, Aliban. The thugs laugh, telling her to go home since Aliban is not there and asking if she would like to play with them instead. One of the men grabs her arm, calling it a souvenir for his troubles. A figure at the bar turns around in his seat. The man, Aliban, recognizes her immediately, calling out the name, Chris Ragnica. He mockingly asks if she is here to do it with him, but she flatly replies, no. Alice declares that her name is now Alice and she is here to crush him, as Mishiro appears at her side, ready for battle. The thugs are incredulous, mocking the idea that 3 kids have come to fight them. Mishiro raises her hand, focusing her energy. She unleashes a powerful frost wind spell, instantly freezing several of the thugs solid. The men cry out in shock as they are immobilized by the ice, and Mishiro tells them their struggles are futile. From his hiding spot, Augur marvels at her power, realizing she condenses her ice magic with wind to enhance its effectiveness. He concludes that with such a technique, ordinary fighters stand no chance against her, no matter their numbers. Mishiro eagerly asks Augur how she did, and he praises her performance as being beyond his expectations, though he wonders why she didn't use this power against Lurk. Before she can answer, Augur senses an attack and quickly shoves her out of the way. Aliban appears where they just stood, laughing that Augur's reflexes are not bad but questioning how long he can keep up with his speed. Augur recognizes that Aliban is a speed-type fighter and finds the challenge interesting, noting that the attack was a close call. He tells Mishiro the new plan. She will use her magic to freeze Aliban's feet, creating an opening for him to attack. Augur turns to Aliban and taunts him, declaring that he will now become the test subject for their combination attack. With a shared cry, the group prepares to engage the enemy leader. Mishiro unleashes her magic with a sharp cry. Aliban scoffs as he easily dodges the ice that shoots across the floor toward him. He vanishes in a burst of speed. He reappears behind Mishiro, but she is ready for him, unleashing another frost wind spell at point-blank range, explaining that she can sense his location through the wind. She notes, however, that a spell cast purely on reflex will only last for a moment. Just as she predicted, Aliban quickly shatters the ice that had begun to encase him. Mishiro asks Augur if her distraction was good enough, and he smiles, telling her she did well. Taking advantage of the brief moment Aliban was immobilized, Augur closes the distance and delivers a powerful gut punch. The force of the blow sends Aliban flying backward. Augur dusts off his hands, asking if the fight is over already, while an energized Mishiro declares she can keep going. As Alice begins cleaning up the frozen thugs, Mishiro thinks about how jealous she is of the capable maid, while a winded Aliban struggles to his feet. Aliban is in disbelief, unable to accept that he, the undisputed champion of the Walshua arena, is being beaten by a group of kids. His desperate gaze falls upon a crate containing small vials of a mysterious liquid marked with a demon's head symbol. He grabs one of the vials and quickly drinks its contents. He clenches his fist as a dark power begins to surge through him. Alice and Mishiro are shocked, demanding to know what he just drank as he begins to laugh. Aliban throws his head back and lets out a crazed, booming laugh. Augur looks on, confused and unsettled by this sudden turn of events. Aliban lets out a crazed, booming laugh as his transformation takes hold. Augur looks on, bewildered by the sudden change in his opponent. Mishiro and Alice recoil in shock at the sight of the transformed Aliban. Their shock turns to horror as the new creature moves. A black screen echoes with their screams of terror. A wound suddenly appears on Augur's cheek. Dazed by the attack, Augur realizes he's in trouble. Mishiro begins to wail while a furious Alice, her faceplate down, declares she will kill Aliban for wounding her master, but Augur holds her back. He manages to calm Alice down while still questioning why Mishiro is crying so loudly. The transformed Aliban lunges toward Augur. A brutal, high-speed brawl ensues between Augur and the hulking creature. The fight ends with Augur stuffing the defeated Aliban headfirst into a large wooden barrel. Standing over his beaten foe, Augur calmly asks if he is satisfied now. Mishiro and Alice, their eyes replaced with hearts, are completely starstruck by how cool he was. A flashback shows Aliban as the celebrated, undefeated champion of the Walshua arena. He recalls loving the thrill of fighting but growing bored because he never lost and never faced a true challenge. The memory ends with a vision of him being utterly defeated by a stronger opponent. He realizes that all this time, he has been desperately wanting to fight someone stronger than himself. Augur looks down at the defeated man and simply asks, "So?" Aliban prostrates himself on the floor, deeply impressed by Augur's strength, and begs to become his subordinate. Alice objects, declaring that a villain like Aliban is unworthy, while Augur thinks to himself that this has become troublesome as he doesn't need male subordinates. Changing his mind, Augur accepts Aliban into his service and grants him permission to build an arena, on the condition that it operates under his watch. Alice is completely shocked by her master's decision. Augur explains to her that the previous arena was unrefined and rife with human trafficking because it was managed by a small fry. He declares that with him managing it, he can create an arena that everyone can accept. Internally, Augur praises his own genius for this brilliant idea, certain that he has convinced Alice while also securing a way to get rich. Alice is moved to tears, believing her master is precious for showing concern for her feelings and even responding to a villain's wish. The battered Aliban looks up at Augur with awe, realizing that this person is more than just strong. He is a good guy. Both Alice and Aliban pledge their undying loyalty to Augur for the rest of their lives. The scene shifts back to the quiet orphanage. Mio is overcome with emotion, exclaiming, "Is that true?" upon hearing the news. Alice assures a crying Mio that she can rest now, as Mio thanks them all profusely. Mio expresses her profound relief that she can continue to stay with the children. Augur interrupts her, stating that he wants to talk to her about that very subject. The children see Mio begin to cry again and immediately jump to the conclusion that the nasty noble is upsetting her. They angrily accuse Augur of planning to take Mione's money, pointing out that they are already poor. The children babble about their meager finances and Mio's good cooking, leaving Augur to wonder what on earth Mio has been teaching them. Mio apologizes to Verret-sama for the children's behavior, blaming it on her own inability to teach them about love. The children gather their toys and trinkets, offering them to Augur as payment and asking if it will be enough. One of the boys looks up at Augur with a determined expression. He asks if it's true that nobles love treasures and offers their collection to him. He then declares that they love Mione more. The boy bravely states that even if Augur is a noble, they will not forgive him if he takes away Mione's happiness. Mio embraces the child, telling the stupid child not to worry because she is already happy. The other children gasp in surprise, exclaiming that this is the first time they have ever heard Mione say the word stupid. Amidst the children's laughter, Mio turns to Augur, having found her answer. With tears of joy, she realizes that if the feeling that makes her both cry and laugh is called love, then she has already known it for a long time. Augur simply watches the scene unfold. He thinks to himself, good for her. Augur announces to Alice that they are returning to the academy. He then declares to a stunned Mio and the children that he will be moving all of them to the Verret territory. His announcement is met with wide-eyed shock from everyone present. They all cry out in disbelief. Augur grins maniacally, confirming that he had not forgotten his two objectives for this mission: to test Mishiro's capabilities and to secure future labor. An epilogue explains that Augur provided housing and education to Mio and the children in his territory, strengthening his path of evil. Simultaneously, he ordered Aliban and his followers to gather villains to serve as warriors in his new arena. As a result, he is now revered by two completely different groups. The orphans pray for the prosperity of the kind Verret-sama, while the arena fighters offer their battles as tributes to the great justice, Verret-sama. While Alice serves him refreshments, Augur relaxes, thinking to himself that he is one step closer to becoming an absolute villain, the only person who sees his actions this way. In a corridor of the Royal Magic Academy, Lishburg, Karen Levitsenko walks with a confident air. A group of female students spots her and swoons at the sight of Levitsenko-sama. The adoring students all greet her with a cheerful chorus of "Good morning." Karen gives them a cool nod as they gush over how wonderful she is, even though she is the Crown Prince's fiancée. Her composure falters when she sees Augur walking past, and she becomes visibly flustered. Augur glances back over his shoulder, feeling as though he was being watched. Alice asks if someone was there, but since he didn't feel any killing intent, Augur dismisses it as his imagination. A month has passed since the incident at the orphanage, and their days at the academy have been peaceful. Mishiro Leash bounces up to them, energetically wishing Augur-kun and Alice-san a good morning. Augur is momentarily taken aback by her appearance. She explains that since they have physical education and magic training today, she has already changed into the summer training uniform, a design which Augur internally praises. The mention of magic training reminds Augur of a piece of advice he has for Mishiro. He tells her to suppress her powerful ice magic during training, warning her that she will be targeted if everyone knows how strong she is, though she worries about needing good grades for her poor family. Augur smoothly reassures her that she doesn't have to worry about such things, promising to look after her forever. His heartfelt declaration makes Mishiro blush intensely. She stammers that such a sneak attack of kindness is unfair, while from around a corner, Karen witnesses the entire exchange. Karen is shocked and flustered by the intimate scene between Augur and Mishiro. She steps out and complains loudly, finding it unfair that Augur already has two cute girls around him so soon after arriving at the academy. She quickly composes herself and gives a formal, "good morning," to everyone. Augur questions why she is greeting them, musing that her father would be angry if he found out, which makes Karen panic as she realizes her outburst revealed her presence. The two former fiancés stare at each other in a tense standoff. Karen quickly regains her composure, resolving to act as a proper member of the Levitsenka family. She gracefully introduces herself to Mishiro and apologizes on behalf of the Baumwold family, who are part of her faction, for the trouble they caused. Augur understands her true motive is simply concern for Mishiro, before Karen adds that she has a message for him from President Milfanti. She relays the message from Reina, a standing invitation to come to the student council room for tea, making Augur realize she has not given up on scouting him. When Augur asks if she joined the student council, Karen happily confirms it, stating that her wish is to help people. She eagerly grabs his hands and invites him to join as well. She quickly retracts the offer, remembering that the president might not actually be pleased to have him. Augur bluntly reminds her that he already refused the offer and tells her that as the crown prince's fiancée, she needs to be more aware of her actions. Karen apologizes, admitting she can't seem to lose her old habit of being forward with him, as he turns to leave. Just as he walks away, he glances back and says, "See ya, Karen." The casual use of her first name leaves her completely stunned and speechless. She panics, her mind racing as she wonders what she should do. Alice and Mishiro both realize the significance of Augur's seemingly simple farewell. The very next day, Karen cheerfully greets Augur in the morning. She then begins to, coincidentally, appear wherever he goes, from being in the same class to following him to the restroom. Today, she musters the courage to ask him to lunch, but loses her nerve at the last second and runs away. The scene shifts to the bustling academy cafeteria. Augur sits at a table with Alice and Mishiro, looking completely baffled. He wonders aloud why Karen, who never approached him before, is suddenly so persistent. Alice announces that she is going to borrow the cafeteria's kitchen to cook for them. Across the room, Crown Prince Arnia is holding court, surrounded by a group of adoring female students. Mishiro recognizes the prince with a shocked expression. She wonders why the prince is in the cafeteria when he usually dines with Karen, and also why Karen is cross-dressing if she's engaged to him. Augur admits that he has been thinking about that as well. He explains that the Levitsenka family was only blessed with one child, Karen, and their family traditions only allow a male to be the heir. As a last resort, her parents raised Karen as a man. A year ago, the king chose Karen to be the crown prince's fiancée because she was deemed the most suitable female candidate from the four great ducal families. Augur guesses that Karen, having been forced to behave like a man her entire life, couldn't simply start dressing like a woman upon the engagement. He further speculates that since the engagement was arranged by the king, the prince himself likely has no interest in Karen and is letting her continue to cross-dress. Mishiro points out that despite being engaged, the prince is still very close with other girls. Both Augur and Mishiro have a simultaneous moment of realization. Enraged that the fucking bastard already has a harem when he still doesn't, Augur impulsively copies the prince's actions by feeding Mishiro a piece of candy. Mishiro declares that his candy is far more delicious, though he notes it was just a random piece from his pocket. Augur internally praises Mishiro for being cute on top of having massive boobs. Mishiro ponders why males seem to enjoy having many females following them. She wonders what could possibly be so fun about it. Putting a flustered Augur on the spot, she asks if he, being a male, also dreams of such a thing. Before he can answer, Alice returns with a large plate, proudly presenting a hamburger, an invention of Augur-sama. As Mishiro happily bites into the hamburger, Augur thinks to himself that jealousy is a cute thing. Alice overhears the word jealous, and her eyes narrow in thought. She suddenly understands the reason behind Karen's recent and persistent approaches. Alice declares her theory. Karen's objective is to make the Crown Prince jealous by getting close to Augur. Augur realizes that if Alice is right, then Karen has been trying to use him all along. A wicked grin spreads across his face as he finds this development incredibly interesting. He decides that if Karen wants to play games, he has a few ideas of his own, though Alice quietly expresses her doubt that jealousy is Karen's true motive. A grand estate stands alone under a starry night sky. The scene flashes back 10 years, to a formal ball being held inside the mansion. Outside in the gardens, a young girl in a frilly dress is crying by herself. A young Augur appears from the shadows, telling Karen that he has been searching for her. The tearful young Karen looks up at the sight of Augur. He asks if her father scolded her again, and she sadly replies that she is a bad child after all. Augur presents her with an ornate, butterfly-shaped hair clip, telling her it is for her. He smiles and says he figured it would look good with her pretty hair. He gently tells her not to cry anymore, promising that the hair clip will accompany her whenever he is not around. In that moment, Karen saw Augur as her hero of justice, someone who would always save a crybaby like her. The narration states that this belief was nothing more than a joke. A memory shows Karen's father yelling that Augur Verret has no magic aptitude, furiously calling off their engagement and forbidding his daughter from ever getting involved with that boy again. Another memory shows a slightly older Augur cheerfully greeting Karen, who is now dressed as a boy, and asking about her new getup. Karen looks down with a pained and conflicted expression. She remembers her father dragging Augur away from her at the party. The flashback shows Karen alone in her lavish bedroom. She thinks about her own weakness, how she was unable to defy her father when he ended the engagement or when he forced her to live as a man. She believes it is an irrefutable fact that she has hurt Augur, and that he will never treat her the same way again. The scene returns to the present, where Augur is actively flirting with Karen, telling her he came to see her because he wanted to meet her so much. Karen is completely shocked by his sudden and intense attention. He continues to shower her with compliments, telling her she looks as beautiful and bright as the sun. As Karen's mind reels in confusion, he leans in close and asks if he can come see her again tomorrow. He places a hand on the wall behind her as she wonders if she is dreaming. Noticing that she is spacing out, he calls her cute, which only reinforces her belief that this must be a dream. With her heart throbbing, she watches him walk away, telling her he'll see her in class as her books fall to the floor. A galaxy of stars explodes in her mind as she realizes that this is not a dream. As Augur walks away with Alice and Mishiro, Mishiro asks what he is plotting. Augur thinks to himself that since Karen is trying to use him to make the Crown Prince jealous, he will not simply be used. His countermeasure is to pursue her relentlessly instead, believing she will be put off when the person she is trying to use actually seems to fall for her. He declares to his companions that Karen had better prepare, because he will not be pulling any punches in this fight. A montage shows Augur's campaign of flirtation continuing over the following days. He compliments her constantly, praising her hair, her smile, and her skin. Other students begin to whisper about the rumor that Augur Verret is wooing Levitt Senkasama. Karen is shown completely flustered and overwhelmed by his passionate advances. She begins to wonder if it's possible that Augur-kun shares the same feelings for her that she has for him. Lost in a fantasy about their wedding and future children, Karen decides that they should get married. Her daydream is shattered by a servant who has come to retrieve Karen-sama. The servant reminds her that she has a scheduled dinner with Prince Arnia, and she reluctantly agrees to go. The scene shifts to a large, empty dining room in a grand building. Crown Prince Arnia sits alone at the head of the table, coldly telling Karen that she is late. Karen apologizes as the prince dismissively tells her it's fine and to take a seat. He immediately asks her to give him some money again, stating that he needs 5 gold coins. A shocked Karen reminds him that she just gave him money recently, but he claims he has already used it all. He complains that his father, the king, is too stubborn to give him an allowance, using the excuse that it is to help him understand the lives of commoners. Karen timidly asks why he doesn't just ask his own father for the money. She recalls her own father's cruel words, telling her that she has no value to him other than as the crown prince's fiancée. She remembers the pain and humiliation of being forced to conform to his demands. With a look of terror, she tells the prince that there is no need to involve her father. She promises that she will prepare the money on her own. The prince is pleased, telling her that he looks forward to meeting again next week. As she sits in stunned silence, the prince adds that there was something else he wanted to tell her. He says that while he doesn't care about her cross-dressing, he has always found her unpleasant to look at, and now he knows why. It is, he says with a smirk, her annoying red hair. As he leaves, he suggests that if she truly wants to cross-dress, she should go all the way and cut her long hair short. Karen is left sitting alone, completely devastated by his cruel words. She wonders why she kept her hair long all this time, thinking it must have been because of some lingering regrets. She remembers her deep desire to wear a skirt and a cute uniform, just like a normal girl. She clutches a lock of her long red hair. She recalls the memory of young Augur telling her he thought a hair clip would look good with her pretty hair. She remembers him saying the clip would be with her even when he was not. A single tear falls as she thinks his name. Crying, she realizes she kept her hair long because Augur once called it pretty, and she calls out for his help. An unfamiliar voice asks who she is calling Okuin. Augur appears with Alice and Mishiro, demanding to know when they became so close that she feels comfortable ambushing him on his way home. Student Council President Reina Milfonti joins them. Augur states that he knew her friendly act was fake, and she casually asks what he is talking about. Reina says she is looking for Levitsenko-san and asks Augur when he last saw her today, to which he replies not since before lunch. Reina finds this strange, revealing that Karen was absent from a student council meeting that afternoon without giving a reason, something that has never happened before. She concludes that something must have happened to her and invites Augur-kun to search for her together. Reina casually calls Augur Okuin, prompting him to ask who she is referring to with such a nickname. When he questions her naming sense, she offers Ujiruger as an alternative. He flatly rejects her suggestions, and she finally proposes darling before he cuts her off and asks what she really wants to say. Reina's demeanor shifts as she asks Augur if he is aware of how cruelly Prince Arnia treats Karen Levitsenko. Augur correctly assumes she is referring to the prince's public flirtations and lack of interest in his own fiancée. He simply confirms that he knows about it. Reina is taken aback by his admission, concluding that the rumors must be true and that Varikuin is a hero of justice for siding with Karen despite the circumstances. Augur is visibly annoyed by her misguided conclusion. Reina then reveals a more serious accusation, stating that the prince has been extorting a large sum of money from Karen. She explains that the prince finds pleasure in making Karen suffer by using his royal position to make unreasonable demands, leaving Karen to suffer all by herself. Augur is stunned into silence by this revelation. Reina states that she also despises the prince for his actions and proposes that they work together to solve the problem, believing Augur was already protecting Karen. The truth crashes down on Augur. He didn't know anything about the extortion, and Karen wasn't trying to use him to make the prince jealous. A montage of his recent, aggressive flirting flashes through his mind. He remembers all the flowery compliments he gave her. With dawning horror, he realizes that he was terribly mistaken about her motives. He imagines how Karen must have seen the situation. Him as a shining angel and the prince as a devil. He understands that his actions have led Karen to a critical misunderstanding, making her believe that he is genuinely kind and in love with her. Panicked by the thought of a duke's daughter falling for him and disrupting his harem plans, he resolves to correct the situation immediately. He tells President Milfonti to wait in the student council room, promising to bring Karen there. The scene shifts to the academy building at night. Augur finds Karen sleeping inside a closet in her room. He opens the door and gently calls her name, telling her he knew she would be here. A startled Karen wakes up and asks how he knew where to find her. He reminds her that she has always had a habit of hiding in a closet whenever she is feeling down. Karen gives a sad laugh, admitting that he is right. She laments that people can't change easily, and that even after growing up, she is still the same crybaby who can't do anything. She sadly concludes that she hasn't grown one bit since they were children. Augur takes her hand and gently pulls her from the closet. She protests, telling him not to look at her because she looks terrible. He simply says that he doesn't care. He leans in close, telling her that he has seen her crying face so many times that he has grown tired of it. He declares that from this moment forward, they will forever be childhood friends, so she no longer needs to pretend in front of him. He asks if she understands his meaning. Internally, he congratulates himself on his brilliant move, believing that by childhood friend-zoning her, all his recent romantic advances will be reinterpreted as simple acts of friendship. Karen tearfully agrees and throws her arms around him in a tight hug. Augur relaxes, assuming she has understood his intentions and is giving him a friendly hug. However, Karen's expression reveals she has misinterpreted "forever be childhood friends" as "we'll be forever together," and the narration confirms it was not okay. Augur pulls back and notes that she seems to have calmed down. He smiles gently and asks if they should go. Suddenly, a loud bang echoes from outside, and the building shakes from an explosion. Augur reacts instantly, scooping a terrified Karen up into a princess carry. As she screams, he holds her close and tells her to lower her voice. He tells her to stay still for a while, explaining that he was asked by the president to bring her to the student council room without being seen. He leaps across the rooftops with her in his arms, wondering if the jump was too high but concluding that at least she has gone quiet. They arrive at the student council room, where Reina is waiting for them. Augur gently sets a dazed Karen down on her feet. Karen immediately bows low, apologizing profusely to President Milfonte for being absent from the meeting without permission. Reina smiles kindly and accepts her apology, saying she is willing to overlook any punishment. She states there is only one matter they need to discuss. The topic at hand is what they should do about Prince Arnia. Reina tells a shocked Karen that she has heard about her circumstances. She explains that while she would prefer for the crown prince to change his ways and for Karen to become his fiancée again, she cannot punish a royal prince as she did Lork. However, she says with a sly smile, she has an idea and asks if they are aware of the Academy's dueling system. Both Augur and Karen are stunned by Reina's sudden suggestion of a duel. Reina explains the Academy's dueling system. When two parties claims conflict, they can duel in front of the student body, and the winner's claim will be officially recognized. A terrified Karen panics at the thought of fighting the crown prince, while Augur realizes this is a perfect opportunity to fight him openly. Augur decisively accepts the challenge, shocking both Karen and Reina with his quick response. A worried Karen protests that it's too dangerous, but Reina simply smiles, saying she knew he would agree. Reina adds another rule of the dueling system. The loser is required to do one thing for the winner, and asks if he still wants to proceed. Unfazed by the condition, Augur confirms that he doesn't mind and formally declares that he will challenge Prince Arnia to a duel. Karen is moved, believing Augur is doing this for her sake, while he internally smirks, refusing to let her take this convenient task from him. He thinks gleefully that this plan kills two birds with one stone. He can break the prince's spirit and also gets a chance to beat the bastard's face to a pulp. With the decision made, Reina announces that she will get Prince Arnia's approval and inform them of the date later. As a swooning Karen says she feels dizzy, Augur calls her hopeless and tells her to hang on, while Reina tells them to quickly disappear from her sight. The scene shows the Academy at night. Reina watches from her window, pleased that Varric Kuin moved exactly as she had wanted him to. She eagerly anticipates witnessing the magic canceller that Bamold told the principal about go up against Prince Arnia's powerful magic. She reflects that what she found most interesting was the look in Augur's clear eyes when he accepted the duel. She wonders to herself why his eyes were filled with such straightforward justice. The thought of his righteous gaze makes her blush, admitting to herself that it turned her on. The next day, news of the upcoming event spreads rapidly. A poster announces that a duel between Crown Prince Arnia and Augur Varret has been scheduled for the day after tomorrow. The student body is in an uproar, buzzing with excitement over the sudden news. Augur is shocked that Reina managed to get the prince's approval and have a poster made in just one day. Mishiro is suddenly swarmed by members of the newspaper club, who want to take her picture because she is a friend of the famous Sir Varret. Alice quickly intervenes, scolding the reporters and protecting a frightened Mishiro. A deeply moved Mishiro tells Augur that the student council president secretly informed her about Karen's circumstances and that he is fighting for her sake. Alice then apologizes to Augur for ever thinking he was an idiot, realizing now that his actions were part of a deeply calculated plan to save Karen. Although he is confused by their praise, Augur is pleased that his favorability with his companions has increased even more. Both Alice and Mishiro warmly pledge to support and cheer for him with all their might during the duel. Augur thanks them for their support and leads them to the old school building to discuss his plans. Inside, Alice correctly summarizes his supposed plan: to beat the prince, force him to turn over a new leaf, and make him treat Lady Levitsenka better. Augur strikes a pose and dramatically names his strategy, Crown Prince New Game Operation. He congratulates himself on the great name just as the door behind him creaks open. Prince Arnia himself steps into the room, surprising everyone. Augur is shocked that the prince would visit the old building but thanks him for agreeing to the duel proposal. The prince kicks the door shut behind him. Arnia scoffs at the idea of a duel, insulting Augur as a mere dropout, and asking if he is sure he wants to show his true colors. He holds up a newspaper featuring an interview with him and Karen, hinting that he has his own agenda. Augur is confused by the newspaper article. The prince explains that simply accepting a challenge from a dropout would be boring, so he used the situation to make things interesting by painting himself as a hero sacrificing himself for his fiancée. He boasts that he arranged the match for the day after tomorrow specifically to maximize his popularity with the female students. Alice is furious at his cunning, realizing he orchestrated all of this in a single night just to become more popular. Augur notes the prince's seriously bad personality and doubts he would change his ways even if he were to lose the duel. The prince then turns his attention to Alice and Mishiro, who are standing behind Augur. The girls look on, confused by his sudden interest. The prince states that he understands Augur's aim is to win the girls, but he declares that he will not give them to him. The girls blush, moved by Augur's supposed affection, while the prince finds it interesting that Augur cherishes them so much. The prince reveals his perverted nature, declaring that what he loves most is stealing women who belong to other men. He makes a suggestive grabbing motion toward the girls. Alice glares at him with pure killing intent, asking if he has a death wish. A tense standoff unfolds between the smirking prince, a nervous Mishiro, and a furious Alice. Alice's knuckles crack as she clenches her fist in rage. Augur steps between them, grabbing the prince's wrist to stop him from advancing further. He firmly tells the prince to stop messing with Alice and Mishiro. Prince Arnia laughs, commenting on how very protective Augur is of his companions. He agrees to back down for now but smugly declares that the girls will be his once the duel is over, adding that he is looking forward to it. After the prince departs, a visibly stressed Augur lets out a sigh of relief, realizing it was a close call. He fumes internally, thinking that he was trying to resolve the situation peacefully, but the foolish prince is throwing himself at a nuke, referring to the dangerously protective Alice. Mishiro tearfully thanks Augur for covering for them, while Alice pledges even greater loyalty to him for his actions. Augur wonders aloud what the king could have been teaching his son for him to become the next king. Alice notes that while the prince is rotten, he is still royalty and must have inherited powerful magic, though no one knows his true abilities since he always skips classes. Calling it a good question, Augur tells Alice to come with him as he gives Mishiro a piggyback ride. He leads them to the practice tower, which Alice recognizes. Mishiro questions how they can enter, as she was told first-year students are not allowed inside. Augur holds up an ornate key, assuring them that it will not be a problem. He presents the key to his companions with a flourish. When Mishiro asks where he got it, he explains that President Milfanti lent it to him. A flashback to the previous night shows Reina stopping Augur before he leaves the student council room. She gives him the key to the practice tower and grants him and Lish-san permission to be absent from class to train for the duel. When Augur questions her authority to grant such permission, Reina reminds him that as the student council president, she is the highest authority in the academy. Back in the present, Augur unlocks the heavy doors to the tower. He opens the doors and announces that it is time to begin their training. Mishiro is amazed by the immense size of the training hall inside, while Alice asks what they plan to do here. Augur declares their objective, to devise a way to defeat a magician without using his signature, delete, ability. Alice understands, realizing that he cannot reveal his secret technique during a public duel that all the students will be watching. Augur asks Mishiro if she can use her ice magic to create snow, and she eagerly agrees. Mishiro casts her spell, and a gentle snowfall begins to fill the grand hall. As snowflakes fall around them, Augur catches one and tells a blushing Mishiro that her magic is very pretty. He apologizes for ending up making the two of them the stakes for the duel but promises that he will win and protect them both. A deeply moved Mishiro tells him that he can rest easy. Augur removes his uniform jacket and announces that it's time to start. He explains that they are going to meditate here, which surprises Mishiro, while Alice openly admires his muscular physique. He elaborates that because his research has always been based on the assumption that he can erase an enemy's magic, he has very little experience fighting magicians normally. Mishiro realizes that because he erases magic before he can truly experience it, he now needs to learn how to fight while sensing magic with his body. Augur confirms her theory, stating that for the next 2 days, He will expose himself to the snow magic to get his body used to it. Mishiro worries that he will catch a cold, but Alice is confident that Ogre-sama will be fine, finding this method of training with his body to be very much like him. Mishiro reflects on how she grew up experiencing magic, knowing that not having that experience is a major handicap for any magician. She feels that this training method is too reckless and wonders if he can truly endure it. However, she decides that this is the Ogre-kun she knows and resolves to make it snow for 2 days without a break to support him. Ogre thanks Mishiro, telling her that he owes her one. Mishiro explains that the ice will disappear in several hours but promises to recreate it when the time comes, as Alice wishes him the best from the second floor. As the girls watch from above, Ogre sits down and begins his meditation in the magical snow. The narration explains that in this world, there exist invisible entities called spirits. These spirits have various attributes like fire, earth, and wind, and when they are infused with a matching magic power, they convert it into energy to create a phenomenon. This phenomenon is what is known as magic. Ogre explains that when people say he has no magic aptitude, it means there are no spirits that match his magic power, not that he lacks magic power itself. In fact, he inherited the massive magic power of the Verret family. He has discovered that to the spirits, his unique magic power is like a poison, and by infusing it into an opponent's spirit, he can cancel their magic activation. This is the secret behind his delete ability, but since he cannot use it in the upcoming duel, he must find another way to win. The training montage begins. The girls are seen asleep in a bed of ice while Ogre continues to meditate nearby. They build a snowman together during a break. The next day, the day before the duel, Mishiro prepares to refresh the snow. Ogre, with his eyes still closed, tells her there is no need, as the ice is about to disappear on its own. Mishiro is confused by his statement. She realizes that he has been keeping his eyes closed this entire time. She wonders how he could possibly know the magic was about to disappear before she did, especially since its duration varies based on her focus. Ogre opens his eyes and calmly states, "I've grasped it." He declares with confidence that with this newfound sense, he will not lose against any magician. On the day of the duel, the arena is packed with excited students. The crowd buzzes, wondering who will win, with most betting on the Crown Prince. In a special viewing box, Ogre's father, Gordon Verret, sits expectantly. Another nobleman in the stands is shocked to see the head of the Verret family in attendance. Principal Floan Milfonte greets Gordon, who laughs heartily and says of course he would come for his son's moment of glory. Floan remarks that Ogre has certainly achieved great things in the short time since he enrolled. She explains that she called him here because, depending on the winner's request after the duel, his permission as head of the family might be required. They both agree to wait, as there is still time before the duel begins. The scene shifts to the contestants' waiting room. Ogre finds Karen hiding under a table laden with tea and sweets and asks what she is doing. She emerges, expressing her fear that if he loses, the cruel prince will demand something outrageous, but Ogre coolly asks if she truly believes he will lose. When she says she doesn't, he tells her to calm down and sit with him. The two sit in a tense, awkward silence on an ornate sofa. Karen comments on his surprising composure and asks how he plans to fight the prince since he cannot use magic. She then smiles warmly, telling him that she trusts him completely. She asks what he will demand from the prince if he wins, and he admits that he hasn't thought about it yet. He muses that his goal is to make the prince and Karen start over, but it would be weird for him to demand that directly. He then decides to give that right to Karen, a decision that leaves her completely shocked. He thinks to himself that now that she has settled into her role as his childhood friend, she must be hoping for the prince to truly engage with her. He leans in close to her, his face inches from hers. He asks her to tell him what she wishes for deep in her heart. Karen looks down, contemplating his question about her deepest desire. She wonders if she is really allowed to say what she truly wishes for. With tears welling in her eyes, she realizes her wish has been set for a long time, but she just couldn't bring herself to say it out loud. Crying, she confesses that she wants to be together forever with Ogre. Ogre completely misinterprets her confession, assuming she means she wants to be with the Crown Prince, and agrees, while the narration clarifies that his assumption was wrong. He stands and tells her to wait, promising that after the duel is over, her wish will come true. The narration ominously states, "From here on dash." In the arena, an announcer declares that, based on the Academy's dueling system, a duel will now be held between first-year students Arnia Rondism and Ogre Verret. The large crowd of female students erupts in cheers for Crown Prince Arnia. A smaller, but equally passionate, group consisting of Mishiro, Alice, and Luark cheers for Augur, with Luark yelling for him to get revenge. The prince smugly asks Augur if he is popular with men, while Augur thinks to himself that their cheers are seriously unnecessary. The announcer instructs both contestants to wear their official battle coats and gloves. The prince casually tosses his black coat aside. Augur dons his own white coat and gloves, preparing for the fight. The two opponents face each other across the dueling stage, looking serious. The prince asks what is the matter as Augur seems to be looking at their coats instead of him. Augur points out that their coats are different colors and asks if they can exchange, but the prince says black isn't suitable for him. Augur explains that the coats are magic tools that determine the winner and are fixed by magic, meaning they cannot be removed once the duel starts. The announcer asks if both contestants are ready. The bell rings and the duel begins. The prince immediately starts his incantation, calling upon an earth spirit. He unleashes his spell, a barrage of stone projectiles aimed to pierce his enemy. The female students scream with delight at the prince's power, while Mishiro and Alice watch with concern. Augur easily dodges the attack and calmly notes that the prince's magic is earth attribute. The prince scoffs, admitting he intentionally missed as a greeting, since he has not yet shown his magic to anyone at the academy. Augur replies that while the prince has been hiding his abilities, he has come up with a countermeasure that can handle any kind of magic. The prince warns Augur to be prepared, as his next large-scale spell might reduce him to nothing. He begins a long incantation, calling on the earth spirit to gather its power and crush his enemies to dust. The prince focuses his full concentration on the spell, completely ignoring Augur's carefree stance. Augur is in utter disbelief, wondering if his opponent is really kidding him. He realizes that the prince has left himself completely wide open. A flashback begins, showing Augur's father, Gordon Verrett, stating that he has faithfully followed the path of evil his entire life. Years ago, Gordon finds a young Augur studying late at night and suggests he take a rest, but Augur refuses. The young Augur thinks to himself that even though he lacks magic aptitude, he must overcome his weakness so as not to bring disgrace upon the Verrett family. He declares to his father that he will become a great noble, just like him. Augur reflects on his past efforts. To become the absolute villain, he never slacked, thoroughly researching magic and polishing his combat techniques. He holds that same resolve now, in his duel with the Crown Prince, vowing never to yield to any opponent. Back in the present, Augur stands before Prince Arnia, who is chanting a spell and is completely wide open, and thinks he could end the fight with a single punch. Augur feels disappointed, having expected a formidable opponent, while the prince taunts him, assuming he's frozen in the presence of his powerful magic. The prince suggests they chat while his spell assembles, but Augur is completely unimpressed by his opponent's lack of focus. He scoffs internally, thinking he could have killed the prince 3 times over in the time he has been monologuing. Deciding the duel is too boring to use the special tactic he devised, Augur resolves to let the prince finish his speech and then end it with a light slap. The prince gloats that a reject born without the magic quality of royalty will never be able to match him. Augur questions if the prince can truly kill him here, in front of all the students and teachers. The prince points to the white attribute relief team, implying they will, somehow, fail to save Augur, resulting in his accidental death. Augur looks at him with disdain and bluntly calls him a boring man. The prince laughs and changes the subject to Karen, confirming that she is Augur's childhood friend. He sneers that he would refuse to walk side by side with that crossdresser, and calls Augur the boring one for associating with her. He continues to laugh, callously referring to Karen as his wallet, that he simply kept around for her money. He then asks what value there could possibly be in a woman like that. A memory of a young, happy Karen flashes through Augur's mind. He remembers a battered but determined Karen from his past. He sees a vision of the current Karen, smiling brightly. The prince's cruel words echo in his head as rage begins to build within him. The prince warns that Augur won't be able to approach him now that his spell is ready. An announcer in the crowd notices that the Crown Prince has finished gathering his magic power. The prince unleashes his ultimate attack, Earth Rainy. A massive hail of rock projectiles rains down from a magic circle in the sky. The prince's supporters cheer wildly, while Augur's friends look on in terror. The prince's confident expression turns to one of shock. He is left speechless by what he sees. He stares in disbelief, wondering how anyone could possibly dodge that countless hail of rocks. He then notices that Augur's eyes are closed. Augur states that he isn't even looking at the prince's shoddy magic, glad that his 2 days of training were not in vain. He clarifies that he is not looking with his eyes, but is instead looking at the magic power itself. He moves with incredible speed, effortlessly weaving through the rock storm and shattering one of the projectiles with a single kick. An announcer in the crowd marvels at the strong blow from Sir Verret. Augur appears before the prince and grabs his coat, telling him that Karen was crying because of his actions. He delivers a powerful punch, yelling at the prince to stand up because the duel has only just started. The prince is knocked out cold from the single blow. Augur is confused, certain that he held back his punch, and wonders if the prince is just pretending to be unconscious. Suddenly, a massive tornado of dark energy erupts from the prince's unconscious body. A student from the relief team yells for Augur to stop, but he knows there is no way the prince would have gone down that easily. The dark energy coalesces into a monstrous form, crushing the prince's body within it. The entire crowd is stunned into a shocked silence. The prince's fangirls begin to give up on him as a referee tries to maintain order amidst the chaos. The announcer officially declares Augur Verret the winner of the duel. 23 minutes after it began, the duel between the crown prince and Augur has concluded. Though let down by the prince's weakness, Augur reflects that he has still accomplished his objective, to make the prince turn over a new leaf and reconcile with Karen, thus cutting off her romantic route toward him. This, in turn, allows him to continue establishing the harem he has always envisioned. The announcer declares that the winner's request will now be heard, but that the right to make the request has been changed from Sir Verret. To everyone's surprise, Lady Karen Levitsenko is called to take the stage. Augur is excited, believing that Karen is about to say she wants to start over with the crown prince, just as he planned. He smiles to himself, thinking that he is counting on her to make the right choice. Karen steps up to the microphone and addresses the unconscious crown prince Arnia to make her request. She asks to cancel their engagement and for permission to be engaged to Sir Augur Verret instead. The entire stadium, including a dumbfounded Augur, is stunned by her declaration. As the crowd erupts in congratulations, a flustered Augur asks Karen what she is doing. He looks up to the viewing box and sees his father and the principal smiling and clapping approvingly. He panics, shouting that this is all some kind of mistake. His father asks if it's a mistake, as a bolt of energy crackles in his hand. Principal Floan explains that as soon as the duel started, she asked for Karen's request and, anticipating Augur's victory, immediately obtained permissions from the king, Duke Gordon, and Duke Levitsenko. Augur is horrified to learn that even the king and Karen's own father have given their approval. He realizes with a blush that he is now officially engaged to a duke's daughter with the king's blessing. As his companions call out his name, Augur screams internally, his grand harem plan now in ruins. 3 hours later, Augur is resting in the infirmary. He lies in bed, groaning that he never expected Karen to say that and wondering what she could possibly be thinking. A voice asks if he is awake, and he sees Karen's reflection in his eye. He sits up and groggily says that what she did was terrible. Karen asks if he is feeling unwell. Her innocent question leaves him completely confused. In the academy infirmary, Augur wakes up, wondering what is happening. His dazed eyes focus on Karen's chest in front of him. He confusedly asks why her chest is bouncing around like that. Karen explains that her father, who came to see the duel, reluctantly agreed to her request. A flashback shows her father telling her he will no longer interfere in her life and that she may do as she wishes. She tells Augur that since her father has completely abandoned her, the customs forcing her to dress as a man have vanished. Now wearing the female student uniform, she twirls happily and asks Augur how she looks, declaring that she has now decided to wear whatever she likes. An entranced Augur can only stammer that he thinks she looks good on her. He snaps out of his daze, suddenly remembering the more important issue, the engagement announcement she made after the duel. Karen tearfully reminds him that when she confessed she wanted to be together with Augur, he had replied with a simple, yeah. The full weight of his misunderstanding crashes down on him. Karen asks him if he remembers their conversation. She sits on the edge of his bed, explaining that there is something she has been wanting to say to him. Taking his hand in hers, she confesses that she wants to become his wife and will do her best. She formally asks if he will get engaged to her. She admits that she is a crybaby and has no particular strong suits. But, she says, just as he saved her, she now wants to be the one to support him. Augur's mind is in turmoil, his dream of building a harem clashing with the sudden reality of an engagement to Karen. He stops and has a sudden realization. Now that he thinks about it, Karen is super cute. His thoughts become a chaotic whirlwind of harem, dream, big breasts, and childhood friend. Overwhelmed, he stammers out, "Alright." Overjoyed by his answer, Karen thanks him as Augur tells her they can get engaged, deciding he will think about his harem plans some other time. Karen hugs him tightly, burying his face in her chest. He closes his eyes and leans into the embrace. He moves in to kiss her. The intimate moment is shattered by the sight of Mishiro standing in the doorway. Augur is startled and calls out Mishiro's name, while Karen's heart thumps in her chest. Mishiro asks if she can speak with Levitsenko-san for a moment. She turns and glares at Augur, calling him an idiot. A door slams shut, leaving a cold and confused Augur wondering what he did wrong. The scene shifts to a long, ornate corridor in the academy. Karen asks Mishiro what the matter is. Mishiro stands before her silently for a moment. She awkwardly congratulates Karen on her engagement. Mishiro then suddenly declares that from now on, she and Karen are rivals, a declaration that shocks Karen. Karen panics, realizing that this girl also likes Augur-kun. A strange thought bubbles up in Karen's mind. Being engaged isn't enough. She wants this cute girl with large breasts as her rival too. Karen notes that Mishiro is apparently an expert in magic. She muses that even though Augur is supposedly untrained against magicians, he was able to perfectly dodge the Crown Prince's magic. With a warm and knowing smile, she thanks Mishiro, believing it must be thanks to her help. Mishiro is completely starstruck by how cool Karen is. From the side, Alice watches the two interact, wondering if she should stop them as Mishiro apologizes for her sarcastic tone. Alice concludes that since Lady Levitsenko has been saved and Augur-sama has successfully displayed his majestic presence, the case is now closed. Alice stands in the academy infirmary, thinking about the Crown Prince. The scene shifts to Rondezum Castle at night. Inside, the king sits on his throne as two figures approach. A report is presented, detailing the results of the duel, the cancellation of the engagement between Arnia and Karen, and a renewed engagement with Augur Verret. The figures, Gordon Verret and Principal Floan, confirm that this is the result of the duel to King Ambert. King Ambert Rondezum, Arnia's father, is introduced. The king commends them for their good work and allows everything to proceed as reported. The king remarks to Gordon that he's surprised he could convince Duke Enju, Karen's father, who is known for being strict about rules. Gordon says he can say the same to the king, and Floan apologizes for the trouble her student caused. The king laments that he was too naive, having thought that giving his son the same experience as other students would correct his arrogance. A pained expression crosses his face. He thinks of Chris Ragnica. He remembers her as an excellent commander of the Holy Knights with a straightforward sense of justice, and regrets the bad thing he did to her. The king notes, however, that it is difficult to deal with the current twisted nobles. He recalls how they framed Chris and understands that her banishment at that time was also for her own sake, and that it must have been tough for her. Gordon tells His Majesty not to worry. He explains that Chris, now called Alice, is currently doing well and is together with Augur, who has the same aspirations. The king is pleased by this news. He dismisses the two of them for the night. As they leave, the king calls out to Gordon. He asks Gordon to please take care of Chris and the Levitsenko family, which Gordon agrees to. The scene shifts back to Lichberg Academy at night. Principal Floan looks out at the magical aquarium in her office. She thinks to herself that they got her good. She realizes that by involving the Crown Prince, they secured the royal family's approval, strengthening the once collapsing bond with the Levitsenko family and gathering another powerful piece around Augur Verret. Her fist clenches as she speaks to an unseen person in the room, telling Reina she knows she is awake. Reina emerges from the shadows and addresses her as Sensei. The principal slaps Reina across the face. She berates Reina, calling her a useless fool for doing unnecessary things like suggesting a duel. Reina apologizes, explaining she thought that in a battle against a royal member, Augur would be forced to show his magic cancel ability. The principal strikes her again, telling her not to make excuses. Floan holds up an invitation for an inter-academy magic competition. She orders Reina to make sure she pulls Augur Verret to their side this time. She warns Reina that if she fails, she understands what will happen. A battered and bleeding Reina promises that she will do as her sensei wishes. The principal notes that Reina's expression didn't change even a little, calling her a creepy girl despite being her student. Floan smiles, thinking this just shows that Reina has completely become her puppet. She declares that now is when her fun truly begins. The scene is blank. The next morning at the academy, students are buzzing about Augur, marveling at how incredible he was in the duel and how he also saved an orphanage. As he walks through the corridor, They call him a saint. Augur, accompanied by Alice and Mishiro, wonders why it is so rowdy. Alice explains that it's because everyone is talking about how cool he was in yesterday's duel. Augur thinks they are more likely talking about his audacity to punch the crown prince, and he hopes his infamy spreads far and wide. Karen runs up and asks if she can join them, and Augur agrees, saying she's his fiancée after all. He takes a photo of Karen, Alice, and Mishiro together. A girl in the crowd swoons at how elegant Augur Veritsama is. A young woman with long, light-colored hair greets the day, introducing herself as Schultz Seisha. She stands proudly at the head of a group of girls, all of whom are holding pictures and fans of Augur, and declares herself the president of the unofficial Augur Veritsama fan club. She explains with a sly smile that of course no one has heard of their fan club, as they exist in the shadows and do not draw attention to themselves. Seisha passionately praises Augur's valiant figure and the unwavering power of love he displayed in the recent duel, questioning if there is any maiden in the world who would not be captivated by him. She asks her fellow club members if they understand this, and they all respond with a fervent yes. She states the fan club's motto, "Do not meddle, do not cause trouble, and stay out of sight," vowing that they will continue to support Veritsama with these principles in mind. The scene shifts to Augur walking with his companions, and he glances over his shoulder with a suspicious look. Alice asks if someone was there, but Augur, sensing no particular killing intent, dismisses it as his imagination. Later, at an outdoor cafe, a voice cheerfully wishes Verikuen a good morning. Augur turns to see Student Council President Reina Milfonti sitting at a table laden with pastries. Reina asks why he doesn't look happier to see her, but Augur gets a bad feeling and wants no part of whatever she is planning. She smiles and invites him to chat, as they have some time before class begins. Although hesitant, Augur agrees to a brief chat, thinking it's fine since she has helped him before. He instructs Alice to go on ahead and escort Mishiro and Karen to the classroom. Once they are alone, Augur bluntly asks Reina what she wants. She simply smiles and once again asks him to join the student council. Augur is annoyed by her persistence, but she cheerfully states that she will keep persuading him until he finally joins. He thinks to himself that he has been marked by a truly troublesome person. He feels as though she is looking at him as if he were her prey. Reina offers him some black tea, telling him not to be so wary, while he wonders if she would dare put something strange in it out in public. He takes a sip of the tea and is immediately shocked by how delicious it is. As a member of the Verit family, who are known for their exceptional tea handling, he is surprised to find a brew with such a perfect method. Reina teases that if he joins the student council, she will brew it for him every day, but Augur reminds her that he will not become her underling. She tries another tactic, suggesting that if he joins, he'll have more time to spend with his beloved Levitt Senka-san. He questions her statement, and she reveals that the student council currently has only 2 members, herself and Karen, both of whom were nominated by her sensei. She gestures to a massive pile of paperwork on the table, explaining that because of this, every day is really tough for them. Augur is shocked to see that the documents are official papers for the principal, realizing Reina is doing her sensei's work as well. He states that this shouldn't be a student's job. Reina simply replies that her sensei is a busy person, and everything will be okay if she does the work instead. Her words cause Augur to feel a sudden tightness around his chest. He is struck by an intense and unpleasant feeling of déjà vu. A flashback to his past life shows him in an office, offering to finish work for a colleague who wants to leave early. His kindness is quickly taken advantage of as other colleagues also dump their work on him. He remembers working late into the night, telling himself that it's okay for him to do their work since everyone is busy, even though he hasn't been sleeping properly. He then recalls overhearing his colleagues leaving to get drinks, laughing about how convenient he is. The painful memory makes Augur clutch his chest in the present. He understands now, Reina is being used just as he was in his past life, and she has made him remember that unpleasant experience. He thinks to himself that being exploited for work is crap. He then notices the dark bags under Reina's eyes and wonders if she is only recruiting him because she is short on people. The realization leaves him speechless and concerned. Reina notices his change in expression and gets up to leave, thinking to herself that he couldn't fully conceal his emotions. As she walks away, she smiles, thinking he's a really kind person. She giggles, finding it adorable that he would feel pity for her fake eye bags. She muses that she doesn't even have the structure to develop real bags under her eyes. From a safe distance, Seisha and her fan club observe the scene through binoculars, gushing over how wonderful Veritsama was while drinking tea. One of the members reports that Verit-sama is being recruited for the student council, but is quickly shushed by Seisha. Seisha is overcome with excitement, declaring the development to be simply fantastic. Augur returns to the classroom, where Mishiro and Karen welcome him back. In the classroom, Karen asks Augur what the president wanted, and he dismisses it as the usual recruitment pitch. Mishiro asks if the student council is really so busy, since there are only 2 members. Karen explains that while she is just a member, the president has a massive workload and barely has time for sleep. Karen gets excited at the prospect of Augur joining the student council, imagining they could spend time together all day, but he begins to refuse. Mishiro suddenly declares that she will join the student council too, mentioning that the president had also scouted her. A shocked Karen wonders when this could have happened. Both Mishiro and Karen look at Augur with pleading eyes, asking him to join the student council with them. Augur apologizes to them both and firmly states that he has no intention of joining the student council, now or ever. He thinks to himself that there is no way he would join a black company that works its members to exhaustion, not even for the temptation of their combined assets. An unseen person calls out to Verit-san as he and his friends are leaving. The principal, Flown Milfonte, appears before them, saying it is good to see him and asking to speak for a moment. Augur dryly asks if both she and her student, Reina, have a hobby of ambushing people, but agrees to talk in a nearby empty classroom. They enter an empty classroom filled with bookshelves and scientific instruments. Karen, Mishiro, and Alice prepare to leave them alone to talk. The principal tells the girls they can all stay, as she would also like to ask Augur to join the student council. Augur is wary, believing she might try to control the situation if they are alone. Augur asks why they want him to join so badly, and Flown replies it's because she values his ability highly. He points out that there is no benefit for him in joining. Flown smiles and offers him a reward fitting for the prestigious Verit family. Augur is internally enraged by her pushy tactics, which remind him of his crappy boss from his past life. He sees through her manipulation, realizing that she overloads Reina with work, just as his old boss did to him. He speaks up, suggesting that the principal should consider letting the student council president have a bit more freedom. His direct comment shocks everyone in the room, including the principal herself. He compares Reina's situation to his own past life, stating that she is just like he was back then, working as told, losing herself in the process, and becoming a lifeless doll. The principal is left completely speechless by his words. Augur smirks, asking if he hit a nerve, before turning to leave with his friends. After they have gone, the principal's expression remains blank and unreadable. Once outside, Karen and Mishiro are terrified, commenting on how angry the principal looked and how scary it was. They both gush over how amazing and courageous Augur was to speak so bluntly to the head of the academy. Augur dismisses it as no big deal, while his companions swoon over him. Internally, however, Augur is sweating, thinking that the confrontation was incredibly scary. He reflects on the intense killing intent he felt from the principal and thinks that her calm was terrifying. He clenches his fist, realizing that he has just made a powerful enemy. The principal sits alone in her office, thinking that calling Reina a doll is not a word someone would normally use. She wonders just how much that Verit brat has figured out but decides it's still fine as long as her plan succeeds. The scene shows a nighttime view of the academy. Mishiro suggests that after angering the principal, Augur should just give up on the student council, but he tells her to wait a second. He explains that from the information he has gathered, it is clear that Reina Milfonte's immense talent is being wasted on trivial tasks. He muses that she is a magic prodigy known as the child loved by God, and questions if letting her talent go to waste isn't a shame. He adds that although her chest is flat, she has great legs, which is also a shame to waste under the principal's control. He turns to a confused Mishiro and declares that they are going to join the student council. He thinks to himself that he has made his decision. He will join the student council, and from the inside, he will turn Reina Milfonte into his pawn. He declares that he won't be working under her, she will be working under him. The girls are overjoyed by his decision, and he tells Alice to take them back to the dorm. Reina is in the student council room when she hears a knock at the door. Augur enters, looking exhausted from the day's events. Reina asks if he would like to stay over in her room tonight. Augur is utterly bewildered by the sudden and unexpected proposition. Reina Milfonte asks Augur if he would like to stay over in her room tonight. A confused Reina asks Verit-kun what he means by his previous statement. Augur clarifies that he got ahead of himself, announcing that he and Mishiro have decided to join the student council. Reina is surprised by his sudden change of heart, but he explains that he has concluded there is a benefit for them in joining. She is suspicious, recalling how vehemently he had refused to work under her just a short time ago, wondering if he truly sympathized with her. In any case, she thinks with relief, now her master will not hit her anymore. She feels a wave of gladness and sincerely thanks Varric-Kuan. Augur steers the conversation back to her earlier proposition. He bluntly asks what exactly she meant by asking him to stay in her room. Reina acts coy, asking if he truly doesn't understand. She clarifies that the benefit for him joining is her, stating, "I want you." She asks if he will come to her room tonight, leaving a blushing Augur speechless. After a moment of hesitation, he agrees to her proposition. A pleased Reina thanks him and says she will be waiting. After Augur leaves, a flustered Reina is left alone in the room. She panics, covering her face and wondering what is happening. She recalls hearing that Varric-Kuan was only interested in girls with large breasts. She wonders if his preference has somehow deepened to include her size as well. She tells herself that now is not the time to analyze his preferences, even though she impulsively agreed to his terms. She reinterprets his words, convincing herself that he must mean he wants her, President Milfonte, specifically. With renewed determination, she vows to do whatever it takes to obtain him. Meanwhile, Augur walks away, thinking to himself that she accepted his invitation, and now he just needs to carry out the plan Mishiro suggested. A flashback shows the group having a picnic lunch, where Mishiro suggests they have a celebration for Karen becoming Augur's fiancée again. Karen agrees that it sounds like a good idea. Mishiro then turns to Karen and says she wants to get closer to her. A flustered Karen is surprised that Mishiro wants to get closer to her specifically. Mishiro suggests the best bonding event for commoners, confident that even nobles will surely love it too. She calls the event an indulgent party. Back in his room that evening, Augur tells Alice that now is the time to use that, thinking that with this plan, he will pull Reina into his world. Reina walks down a corridor, having calmed herself down. She arrives at Augur's room dressed in pajamas, feeling nervous about her bold outfit but resolved not to back down from this chance. She thinks with anticipation about how she will soon be in Varric-Kuan's hands. She walks hesitantly toward his door. She begins to have second thoughts, wondering what she should do. She knows that if he finds out her secret, there is no way he will accept her. But a small part of her hopes that if he accepts even this, he might be able to save her from that monster. A monstrous, shadowy figure with flaming eyes appears behind her in her thoughts. She tells herself to stop being so naive and decides to just go home. Just as she turns to leave, the door to Augur's room swings open, revealing a shocking scene inside. Inside, a shirtless Augur is surrounded by Karen, Mishiro, and Alice in a scene of apparent debauchery, complete with roses and romantic lighting. Reina watches in horror as the sounds from the room suggest the orgy has already started. She realizes with a jolt that the debauched party has begun without her. A thought bubble shows Reina's indignation at Augur's involvement with both Levitsenko-san and Leash-san. As the student council president, she declares that this situation is unacceptable. She resolves to properly warn them, believing that such things should be handled one person at a time. The girls in Augur's room turn and recognize the student council president standing in the doorway. A party popper suddenly explodes in a shower of confetti. A confused Reina is covered in the colorful paper. Karen and Mishiro, both dressed in pajamas, happily welcome her to the party. Alice and Augur, also in sleepwear, welcome her to their pajama party. A bewildered Reina questions the situation, and Augur apologizes for the noise, explaining that everyone got carried away with the party crackers he developed. He explains that since they will all be joining the student council, he thought a party would be a great way to deepen their bonds. Reina realizes with mortification that this is what he meant by, "Stay in my room tonight." She apologizes profusely for her lewd thoughts, admitting that this was a surprisingly pure and healthy event, as Augur asks if she is okay. Mishiro watches the exchange silently. She then turns to Augur and thanks him for inviting a commoner like her to join the student council, expressing her happiness that he decided to join as well. She declares with a bright smile that she wants to have a lot of fun today. Reina looks on with a complicated expression. She agrees that having an event like this once in a while is nice. The pajama party continues with laughter and chatter. Reina asks Karen if the hairpin she's wearing was a gift from Varric-Kuan, and Karen happily confirms it. Not to be outdone, Mishiro, wearing a bear onesie, chimes in that she also received something from him. She proudly displays the handkerchief with the Verrett family crest that Augur gave her when they first met. Karen points out that Alice's maid outfit was also a special order from Augur-kun. Alice happily explains that the outfit was made in a color that doesn't show bloodstains easily, a comment that horrifies Karen. Reina finds the maid to be an interesting person, while Karen thinks the president's sense of humor is strange. Augur relaxes on a couch, pleased that his pajama party is going well and thinking that if Reina gets along with the others, she will naturally open up to him, further proving his genius. He decides to interject in their conversation. Mishiro asks what exactly they are supposed to do as part of the student council. Reina takes this as a good opportunity to explain her true intentions. She reveals that the reason she wanted to invite them is because the Academy Magic competition is coming up soon. A graphic explains that the competition is the kingdom's largest magic tournament, where the 9 magic academies each send a 3-person team from their student council to compete. Augur recalls the event, noting that it was where Lichberg Academy, the reigning champion, lost for the first time last year, and confirms that Reina participated. Karen adds that she was there as a spectator representing her family and that the president was amazing. Reina explains that even though she was just a first year, she took on 3 opponents alone after her teammates fell and almost won, but in the end, she still lost. As a result, she couldn't find anyone with enough skill to withstand the pressure of competing this year, but now she has them. She points out that as a dual magic caster, Mishiro would have no rivals in a fight against other students. She adds that Verrett-kun has the skill to defeat even Prince Arnia and can confuse opponents with his tricky tactics. Augur finally understands the real purpose behind her persistent invitations. Reina looks at them and asks, "How about it?" She formally asks if Verrett-kun and Leash-san will fight alongside her in the competition. Alice and Karen look on with interest at the proposal. Alice declares that she also wants to fight strong opponents, and Augur tells Reina she should have led with this from the start. Reina is pleasantly surprised by his enthusiastic response. Augur thinks to himself that this is interesting and that he will use the competition to show the world what he is capable of. He, Reina, and Mishiro sign the official entry form for the competition. The 3 of them stand together, declaring that they will enter the Academy Magic competition as a team. Augur watches the sleeping girls, remarking on how much fun they had, and asks Alice to fetch an extra blanket. Reina Milfonti, who was not asleep, quietly approaches him from behind and asks what is wrong, wondering if he isn't sleepy. She startles Augur by leaning against him, affectionately murmuring his name as she settles onto the couch beside him. Utterly surprised, he watches as she places her hands near his feet, questioning what is happening. His mind races as he wonders if this intimate situation is what people refer to as a good atmosphere. He mentally tells himself to get a grip, forcefully recalling that small breasts are outside his established fetish and that he must not become inconsistent. Reina suddenly calls him a good person, prompting a confused Augur to ask what she is talking about. She continues, listing his good deeds like saving the orphanage, the commoner Leash-san, and Levitt Senka-san. Her tone turns serious as she says there is something for which she must apologize. She confesses that the dark circles under her eyes from that morning were fake, explaining that her body is not capable of producing something like that. A bewildered Augur asks for clarification, and Reina admits she deceived him to take advantage of his kindness. A flicker of hope crosses her mind as she thinks that if he can accept even this part of her, he might be the one to save her. With a deep blush, she leans in and asks if Augur would be willing to look at her secret. Augur is struck completely speechless, his mind reeling from the proposition. He internally panics at the thought that Reina Milfonti, the student council president, is voluntarily offering to show him her breasts. Pushing aside his shock, he quickly agrees, declaring that he will gladly take a look. The 2 stare at each other intently, the room charged with a tense silence. Reina's hands move slowly to the buttons of her pajama top. As she begins to unfasten it, a vase on a nearby table begins to tremble and tip over. The vase smashes against the floor, shattering both the porcelain and the intimate moment. The loud crash jolts Karen and Mishiro awake with a start. Karen immediately cries out about the vase while Mishiro, though groggy, offers to clean up the mess, earning a quiet thanks from Augur. Augur internally curses the inopportune gust of wind, frustrated that he was denied the sight of her breasts, even if they were small. Reina remarks that her clothes got wet in the commotion and asks to borrow his bathroom, and Augur tells her to use the one next to Alice's room. As he watches her leave, a sense of suspicion grows within him. Something about her actions feels off, and he questions if this is truly in her character. He calls out to her, suggesting she can just call him Augur from now on, and in turn he will call her Reyna. Seeing her standing there, he adds that she must be tired and invites her to come sit down again. Reyna agrees with a small, embarrassed laugh, admitting that using their first names feels a bit strange. She stands for a moment, silently wondering what he will think when he learns her secret. Alone in the bathroom, Reyna stares at her own reflection in the mirror. She questions her own actions, glad she regained her senses and acknowledging the foolishness of hoping that even someone as kind as Augur could accept or save her. Her mind is suddenly plunged into a chaotic and fiery memory of the past. She sees herself as a small child named Mary, running through a destroyed city and calling for her parents. A sinister, silhouetted figure confronts her, stating she is the girl they were looking for and commanding her to come with them. The figure callously dismisses another child as a failure, to be thrown in the trash, as children all around cry out from pain and fear. The figure then looks down at the terrified young Reyna and asks a single, chilling question, "Now, are you useful?" She endures an agonizing ordeal with some kind of device, while the figure remarks with satisfaction that her endurance is great. She recalls that to avoid being discarded like so many others, she was forced to turn a blind eye to the immense pain around her. And through that process of survival, she lost everything that mattered: her body, her heart, and her humanity. She believes that even if she manages to escape from that monster's grasp, there can be no salvation for her. After all she has done, she sees herself as an utterly repulsive being. With grim resolve, she concludes that she has no other option but to carry out her plan. Returning to the main room, she finds Augur watching Alice tuck the now sleeping Karen and Mishiro into bed. Augur turns to her and asks if she is okay, noting her expression and offering her a spare change of clothes if she needs them. He tries to break the heavy atmosphere with a cheerful sound. Reyna laughs softly and says she will be returning to her own room now, as she has things she needs to do. She pauses at the door and asks Augur to please remember her next words, no matter what happens in the future. With a sad smile, she tells him that it is always best to keep a smile. She then departs, leaving a deeply confused Augur to whisper her name into the quiet room. An establishing shot reveals the venue for the Academy Magic Tournament, the southern kingdom of Lamdarv, a 3-day voyage from Ambold. Augur and his companions arrive in the tropical kingdom, excited to have finally reached their destination. Augur thanks Karen for allowing them to borrow the Levitsenka family's magic ship, but she says she is just happy to have come with him. A flashback shows Karen convincing her initially resistant father to lend them the ship, arguing that making him frown a little is nothing compared to cheering for Augur. Augur announces that since they are in a tropical country, it's time for them to go to the sea, as Karen, Alice, Reyna, and Mishiro all appear in their swimsuits. Augur is momentarily stunned into silence by the sight. He is flustered by Mishiro's unexpectedly bold black bikini and Alice wearing her signature belt directly on her bare skin. His mind reels at the sight of Karen's swimsuit squishing a beach ball between her breasts and Reyna's revealing t-shirt and panties. After taking a deep breath to compose himself, he tells the girls they all look great and suggests they go play at the beach. The girls happily splash in the cool ocean water while Augur watches them from the shore. He thinks to himself that nothing has happened between him and Reyna since the pajama party, but vows that once the tournament is over, she will be his. Karen resolves that she must win the tournament and make Reyna acknowledge her strength. Alice believes she cannot catch a magic expert like Reyna's attention with just her physical abilities and decides it's time to unleash her trump card. Her trump card is using Delete to make Mishiro's bikini top disappear, a move that Augur watches with great interest. Reyna approaches Augur as he lounges on the beach and asks why he isn't swimming. He replies that he was thinking about something. She asks if it's about the tournament, but he says there is something else bothering him. He points out Mishiro, who is having a complete meltdown from the heat. He explains that it is not uncommon for ice element mages to be weak to heat, and that this could be a problem for the tournament. He advises Mishiro to drink plenty of water and keep her body cool, at which point Reyna offers a solution of her own. She presents a tall glass of iced tea made from tea leaves grown locally in Lamdarv, which the others find delicious. Augur is impressed by the unusual aroma and good taste, and Reyna is glad that he likes it. When he comments on her knowledge of local teas, she reveals that the Lamdarv kingdom is her birthplace. Augur is surprised by this revelation, and Mishiro wonders why she lives in Ambold and has the surname Milfanti, but decides now is not the time to ask. Feeling re-energized by the tea, Mishiro declares that she is going to train to beat the heat. She tells Reina that since she has placed her hopes in her, she will definitely show her that she can shine. Reina watches her with a blank, unreadable expression. She thanks Leash-san for her determination and tells the others not to overdo it as they run back toward the water. After the others have gone, Reina looks at a beach volleyball and thinks, now then. A beach volleyball showdown is announced between two teams, Alice and Reina versus Augur, Karen, and Mishiro. Reina and Alice are confident, with Alice noting that the other team has a monster on their side. Augur tells his team that winning or losing doesn't matter, as this is just an orientation to help them get used to the island's climate. Reina serves the ball with incredible force, spiking it over the net. Augur is annoyed, realizing that one person is taking this orientation way too seriously. He thinks to himself that Alice doesn't know how to hold back, even during training, and that she is the only one who can go up against the monster Reina. He tells Karen and Mishiro to fall back, declaring that he will take Alice on himself. He and Alice face off across the net, both yelling with fierce determination. Aliban watches the intense match from the sidelines. He shouts, "Aniki," and rushes into the game to intercept the ball. He takes the full force of Alice's powerful spike directly to his face. Augur recognizes the newcomer who just crashed their game. It's Aliban, looking worse for wear but still energetic. The girls wonder who this person is, and Alice explains that he is Augur-sama's subordinate. Aliban proudly tells Aniki that he has been going around putting down scumbags just like he was told and asks for praise. Augur tells him to go to some other crime-ridden place, as this is a tourist spot. Aliban explains that while tracking the distribution of the doping elixir, the trail led him here to Lamdarv, which smells especially fishy. He recalls his master warning him that someone in Lamdarv is definitely up to something bad and to be careful. Reina looks on with a serious, unreadable expression. As the Academy Magic Tournament is set to begin the next day, the accommodations in the Kingdom of Lamdarv begin to fill with students from each participating school. The focus shifts to Augur's current condition. He has gotten himself injured in a situation completely unrelated to the tournament, prompting a frantic apology from Alice. Alice blames herself for failing to show restraint during their volleyball match, but Augur tells her not to apologize, as he was the one who ordered her not to hold back. He says the timing of the injury is actually convenient, as it gives him a chance to reassess his defensive strategies before the tournament begins tomorrow. He reflects that even with a well-trained body, he is still prone to serious external injuries, and while he doubts any student is as monstrously strong as Alice, he must still prepare countermeasures against magic attacks to compete in top form. Just then, Mishiro bursts into the room, cheerfully announcing that she has brought Karen-san. Mishiro explains that since Augur's arm still hurts from the match, she brought Karen, who is the most skilled at healing magic among them. Karen begins to treat Augur's bandaged arm, explaining that while the student council president is technically a better healer, she was summoned by the principal. With a soft glow, Karen casts her Heal spell. Augur's arm is instantly healed, and he is surprised by the effectiveness of the magic as Mishiro and Karen celebrate. Karen tells Augur that he should be thanking Leash-san, not her. A flashback shows Mishiro at the reception desk, arguing with the staff to let her through because her friend is injured and the medics have not yet arrived. When the staff asks for her name, she identifies herself as Mishiro Leash. The staff members recognize her name, mockingly calling her the commoner, and asking if her friend is the failure from the Verret family. Karen is shown to be furious at their blatant insults. Mishiro calmly tells the guards that they can mock her for being a commoner all they want, but she will not allow them to mock Augur-kun. She effortlessly dazes the guards and walks past them, leaving them unable to stop her as she declares, and just like that. Back in the present, Karen is embarrassed that the story was brought up, while Mishiro thinks she was so cool in that moment. Augur is surprised to hear that Mishiro said something so bold. He finds it hard to imagine, given how timid she used to be around nobles, and concludes that Mishiro has truly gotten strong. He thanks both of them but expresses his disbelief that people still look down on them. He asks Mishiro if she is feeling fired up after the incident, and she confirms that she is. He declares that the ignorant fools should watch closely and prepare to tremble in fear before his and Mishiro's might. In a dark, prison-like corridor, a voice says, "Whoa." The principal, Floan Milfonte, tells Reina that she managed to get Augur and Mishiro to participate in the tournament, though she didn't expect much from her. Reina simply thanks her for the kind words. Floan clarifies that she wasn't praising her, stating that it would have been a problem if she couldn't accomplish at least that much. The principal reveals her true goal, In the Lamdarf kingdom, she will obtain the dual magic caster, Mishiro Leash, for herself. She stares down Reina and tells her that she knows what she has to do. Reina looks troubled by the order. The principal menacingly asks if Reina is growing attached to the girl. Reina is startled by the sharp question. She flashes back to Mishiro's bright, happy face. A terrified Reina denies it, insisting, "Of course, that." Floan warns Reina that if she even thinks of betraying her, she will use all her knowledge and techniques to make her suffer a fate far worse than death. She reiterates her threat to use every method at her disposal to torment her. Floan reminds Reina that she, better than anyone, knows how excruciating that pain can be. She coldly orders Reina to go now that she understands her mission. Reina stumbles out of the room, panting heavily from the pressure. She breaks down in the hallway, sobbing in terror and despair. She forces herself to stop, remembering that keeping a smile is always best and that crying is not part of her duty. The next day, Mishiro finds Reina and tells her she is late for the tournament bracket selection. Reina turns to face her, her expression an emotionless mask. Her face remains completely blank. She suddenly puts on a bright, cheerful smile and tells Mishiro not to worry, because she is still useful. At a pre-tournament meeting, Augur asks Reina what the principal wanted, and she replies that it was just the same old routine tasks. Reina points out the self-serve buffet, and Mishiro gets excited about the food. When Reina says she hasn't eaten, Augur calls her an idiot, declaring that working on an empty stomach is a one-way ticket to death by overwork as he piles a plate with food for her. Reina eats her food while another student approaches and calls out her name. A loud young man greets her with a cheerful, "Long time no see." The newcomer is introduced as Shelba Ansem, a third year from Mississona Magic Academy, and Augur wonders who this loud glasses guy is. Shelba boasts about showing his face again before the great Shelba, while Augur thinks he's incredibly annoying. He quietly asks Reina if she doesn't like the guy. As the day of the Academy Magic Tournament arrives, the accommodations prepared for the participants fill with students from each school. The focus shifts to Augur's current condition. He has gotten himself injured in a situation completely unrelated to the tournament, prompting a frantic apology from Alice. Alice blames herself for failing to show restraint during their volleyball match, but Augur tells her not to apologize, as he was the one who ordered her not to hold back. He says the timing of the injury is actually convenient, as it gives him a chance to reassess his defensive strategies before the tournament begins tomorrow. He reflects that even with a well-trained body, he is still prone to serious external injuries, and while he doubts any student is as monstrously strong as Alice, he must still prepare countermeasures against magic attacks to compete in top form. Just then, Mishiro bursts into the room, cheerfully announcing that she has brought Karen-san. Mishiro explains that since Augur's arm still hurts from the match, she brought Karen, who is the most skilled at healing magic among them. Karen begins to treat Augur's bandaged arm, explaining that while the student council president is technically a better healer, she was summoned by the principal. With a soft glow, Karen casts her heal spell. Augur's arm is instantly healed, and he is surprised by the effectiveness of the magic as Mishiro and Karen celebrate. Karen tells Augur that he should be thanking Leash-sen, not her. A flashback shows Mishiro at the reception desk, arguing with the staff to let her through because her friend is injured and the medics have not yet arrived. When the staff asks for her name, she identifies herself as Mishiro Leash. The staff members recognize her name, mockingly calling her the commoner, and asking if her friend is the failure from the Verret family. Karen is shown to be furious at their blatant insults. Mishiro calmly tells the guards that they can mock her for being a commoner all they want, but she will not allow them to mock Augur-kun. She effortlessly dazes the guards and walks past them, leaving them unable to stop her as she declares, and just like that. Back in the present, Karen is embarrassed that the story was brought up, while Mishiro thinks she was so cool in that moment. Augur is surprised to hear that Mishiro said something so bold. He finds it hard to imagine, given how timid she used to be around nobles, and concludes that Mishiro has truly gotten strong. He thanks both of them but expresses his disbelief that people still look down on them. He asks Mishiro if she is feeling fired up after the incident, and she confirms that she is. He declares that the ignorant fools should watch closely and prepare to tremble in fear before his and Mishiro's might. In a dark corridor, a voice says, well. The principal, Floan Milfonte, tells Reina that she managed to get Augur and Mishiro to participate in the tournament, though she didn't expect much from her. Reina simply thanks her for the kind words. Floan clarifies that she wasn't praising her, stating that it would have been a problem if she couldn't accomplish at least that much. The principal declares her true goal. In the Lamdarv kingdom, she will obtain the dual magic caster, Mishiro Leash, for herself. She stares down Reina and tells her that she knows what she has to do. Reina looks troubled by the order. The principal menacingly asks if Reina is growing attached to the girl. Reina is startled by the sharp question. She flashes back to Mishiro's bright, happy face. A terrified Reina denies it, insisting, "Of course, that." Floan warns Reina that if she even thinks of betraying her, she will use all her knowledge and techniques to make her suffer a fate far worse than death. She reiterates her threat to use every method at her disposal to torment her. Floan reminds Reina that she, better than anyone, knows how excruciating that pain can be. An establishing shot introduces the Kingdom of Lamdarv, a southern country and the venue for the Academy Magic Tournament, which is a 3-day voyage by ship from the Kingdom of Ambald. Augur and his companions arrive in the tropical Kingdom of Lamdarv, excited to have finally reached their destination. Augur thanks Karen for allowing them to borrow the Levitsenka family's magic ship, but she says she is just happy to have come with him. A flashback shows Karen convincing her initially resistant father to lend them the ship, arguing that making him frown a little is nothing compared to the opportunity to cheer for Augur. Augur announces that since they are in a tropical country, it's time for them to go to the sea, as Karen, Alice, Reina, and Mishiro all appear in their swimsuits. Augur is momentarily stunned into silence by the dazzling sight. He is particularly flustered by Mishiro's unexpectedly bold black bikini and Alice wearing her signature belt directly on her bare skin. His mind reels at the sight of Karen's swimsuit squishing a beach ball between her breasts and Reina's revealing t-shirt and panties outfit. After taking a deep breath to compose himself, he tells the girls they all look great and suggests they go play at the beach. The girls happily splash in the cool ocean water while Augur watches them from the shore. He thinks to himself that nothing has happened between him and Reina since the pajama party, but vows that once the tournament is over, she will be his. Karen resolves that she must win the tournament and make Reina acknowledge her strength. Alice believes she cannot catch a magic expert like Reina's attention with just her physical abilities and decides it's time to unleash her trump card. Her trump card is using Delete to make Mishiro's bikini top disappear, a move that Augur watches with great interest. Reina approaches Augur as he lounges on the beach and asks why he isn't swimming. He replies that he was thinking about something. She asks if it's about the tournament, but he says there is something else bothering him. He points out Mishiro, who is having a complete meltdown from the heat. He explains that it is not uncommon for ice element mages to be weak to heat, and that this could be a problem for the tournament. He advises Mishiro to drink water and keep her body cool, at which point Reina offers a solution of her own. She presents a tall glass of iced tea made from tea leaves grown locally in Lamdarv, which the others find delicious. Augur is impressed by the unusual aroma and good taste, and Reina is glad that he likes it. When he comments on her knowledge of local teas, she reveals that the Lamdarv kingdom is her birthplace. Augur is surprised by this revelation, and Mishiro wonders why she lives in Ambald and has the surname Milfanti, but decides now is not the time to ask. Feeling re-energized by the tea, Mishiro declares that she is going to train to beat the heat. She tells Reina that since she has placed her hopes in her, she will definitely show her that she can shine. Reina watches her with a blank, unreadable expression. She thanks Leash-san for her determination and tells the others not to overdo it as they run back toward the water. After the others have gone, Reina looks at a beach volleyball and thinks, now then. A beach volleyball showdown is announced between two teams, Alice and Reina versus Augur, Karen, and Mishiro. Reina and Alice are confident, with Alice noting that the other team has a monster on their side. Augur tells his team that winning or losing doesn't matter, as this is just an orientation to help them get used to the island's climate. Reina serves the ball with incredible force, spiking it over the net. Augur is annoyed, realizing that one person is taking this orientation way too seriously. He thinks to himself that Alice doesn't know how to hold back, even during training, and that she is the only one who can go up against the monster Reina. He tells Karen and Mishiro to fall back, declaring that he will take Alice on himself. He and Alice face off across the net, both yelling with fierce determination. The announcer calls the team leaders, Shelba Ansem of Mississona Academy and Reina Milfanti of Lichberg Academy, to step forward. The two rivals face each other in the center of the arena before the cheering crowd. They shake hands, a traditional vow to fight the upcoming match with honor. Shelba immediately begins his taunts, telling Milfanti she will regret teaming up with a commoner and a failure. Reina pretends not to have heard him, sweetly asking if he said something. She then adds that she did hear the part where he said she would regret it. With complete confidence, she declares that with her two teammates, that will not be happening. Shelba wonders why she has such unshakable faith in those two. He muses that while he has no intelligence on the commoner girl Leash, she must be a highly skilled mage to have enrolled in a prestigious academy like Lishberg. Just then, Mishiro trips over nothing, landing in a clumsy heap on the ground. Shelba is shocked by her clumsiness and immediately concludes that she must have bribed her way into the academy and possesses no talent at all. He identifies the real problem as Augur Verret, the son of a corrupt noble house, who could resort to underhanded tricks despite his lack of magic aptitude. One of his teammates ponders the rumor about Augur having no magic aptitude. He questions how Augur is supposed to fight in a magic battle without any magic of his own. Shelba laughs off his concerns, deciding it's ridiculous to be afraid of a magic-less opponent. He rallies his teammates, Malka and Borden, declaring that they were destined to win this match from the very start. The announcer calls the teams to their positions and prepares to start the match. The bell rings and the duel begins. Augur calmly tells Mishiro and Reina to proceed just as they had discussed. He recalls their simple strategy based on last year's data. Malka and Borden will use thunder magic to break their formation, and then Shelba will finish them off with fire magic. On the other side of the arena, Shelba orders his teammates to take out Leash and Verret first, while he holds off Milfonti. Malka and Borden immediately unleash their thunder magic, just as Augur predicted. Mishiro easily counters their attack with a wind upper spell, deflecting the lightning bolts. She smiles with confidence as she prepares her next move. She follows up with a powerful frost wind spell, which completely freezes both of her opponents solid. The announcer is shocked by this display, revealing to the entire stadium that contestant Leash is a dual magic caster, a talent even he has never witnessed before. Mishiro calls out to Augur, telling him that the rest is up to him, while a stunned Shelba screams in disbelief. As the frozen mages begin to fall, Augur is struck by a stray piece of ice. His teammates scream in terror, fearing he has been seriously injured. Augur stands up and calmly brushes off the ice shard, assuring Reina that he is fine. He explains that he intentionally used his body as a decoy to draw out an attack. Reina reminds him they promised not to hold back, but he tells her that was her mistake. He leaps toward the remaining opponent, Shelba, with incredible speed. He declares that he will not let Shelba escape his grasp. The announcer declares the match over, with a decisive victory for Lishberg Magic Academy. In the stands, Karen and Alice are overjoyed by the swift and unexpected win. They celebrate their victory with unrestrained glee. Sometime later, a defeated Shelba lies in the infirmary when a mysterious cloaked figure appears before him.